And who knows? Not. We don't always get a lot of viewers when we do them live, because it's to a limited pool of people, and also it's the work day. So, we'll see what we get there. Oh, before waiting. Well, that's pretty good. Yeah, so when you come on Thursday, I think it would be funny if we make it seem like the four. So you got the five, right? It's top five. You give your first one, it sounds legitimate,
Yeah.
and then I'll have like some kind of like music or timpani roll or something, and then second one is forget it. And then, do you have 4 different ways to expand on forget it?
Yeah, so I have expand on the learn. So and don't fixate on one particular like subject, like all the military order of battle. Make sure you know the town, the people, how to load a rifled musket, how to load a gun. What do you know about the cemetery? You know all about Lincoln's address. How many copies are there? Streets, avenues. All the different topographical features. Certainly know your monuments, the most prominent ones, but make sure you're diverse.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then forget it.
And then once if you get past the knowledge exam, then I need you to forget it because it has nothing to do with the interview. They're going to ask you some questions.
So
they're going to want you to look at.
But you do like forget
about it
because it has nothing to do with the interview. And then all right, what's number 3?
Number 3.
Forget it because
we're going to guide school and we're going to be talking about how to drive a car.
Number 4. Forget it because
that's your oral. You're only going to use 10% of your.
And number 5, forget it.
The orientation is. That's just learning how to fill out paperwork.
All right. So then, really, the forget it's you do
You're
have
just
something
keep going.
for.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Why?
Okay.
And they're going to go, okay. So in summary, it's learn it.
Yeah.
Forget it.
So we could play it like
what?
Every year it says forget it, and then you go, but
here's
forget
why.
it because blah blah blah. So you're trying to get the point across to forget it.
You have it. They trust you have it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you passed the knowledge exam.
The written.
Yeah, you don't have to show off. You're
Yeah, I think a lot of people want to just show off.
Well, you put a lot of work into it. You do.
Oh, sure.
You bust your butt doing it, and right away, and until you realize how well you can use it. Like when you get to use it, it's really good.
Yeah.
Right? But you don't have to force it.
Right.
So what I said, hey, it's not about you. Just forget about you. It's their message. It's their story. And so you can do it justice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Hello, everybody watching there. We have a couple people watching. Hello. Who is in there? We got Aussie Grant's Abandoned Baby has commented. Says, howdy. Is this how you got out of moving today? This is how I got out of moving. Yes. Today was moving day.
Uh-huh.
The movers came at like 8:00 or 8:30, and we packed up all the big stuff. That's what we wanted them to take: big stuff and books and all that. And they dropped it all off, and then here I am.
So not the kind of mover that they come in and pack all your silverware. Like they don't empty the cupboard.
No. We did that.
You have to do
that. They set everything up though. Like they set the beds up, and that was nice.
Yeah.
But no, everything had to be taken down, and we.
So are you sleeping in a new location tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Because there's no bed for me in the old one.
Okay.
It's funny. It takes me a while to get used to a house and make it a home.
Yeah.
And about June, I finally felt like I was at home. And then the landlord's like, "Oh, I'm putting the place on the market." I'm like, "God damn it!" And now, so it's going to take a while for this, but this new place is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. So, all right, let's get it started here. And now, wait, what did you say? Let me just so I know where to take us here. Where did my pen go? Here it is. This is AAGG, Hist of Guide. And today is 10/22/24. And this is Jason. This is for the archive so that people can look back and say, wow, on this date, this happened. Okay, so give me so we're why, or what was the first thing we're starting with?
Define a guide. What is a guide?
Okay, define guide.
Yeah, so I got a pretty good definition here that kind of suits. And then we're going to go into right after the Battle of Gettysburg. Who's the first guiding? Why is there guiding?
Early guides.
Early guiding. Then we'll just kind of go up through. And it goes hand in hand with the development of the field and transportation, etc.
Okay. And then number 3.
Oh, the reasons. Then we'll get into
why
is why there's the things that there are, like the exam rules.
No. But wasn't there why we have the license? Like why they came up with the license?
Yeah. Why is there licensing?
So early guiding, and then bad players.
Yeah, bad behavior
lead to government overreach. All right, and then so now we have legislation.
Yeah, regulation.
Then what?
Then you got regulation, and then you got the development of that over the years.
Development of regulation.
Of regulation, yeah. Then you get into the history of the exams.
History of exams.
And we can cover things like women in guiding. When did women enter the guiding?
Okay. All right, and then I'll have questions, I'm sure, as we go through them. All right, Jason, are you ready?
We are ready.
So you see there your frame there. So you want to move over to your right, like slide the chair over. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but yeah, for the shot, that's where you need to sit. And then when you is that seat all the way up, or did Bethany lower that?
That's all the way up.
That's all the way up?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do this then. Oh, yeah, that's
way up.
That's definitely. Oh, that's the wrong thing. All right. And when you speak, you gotta go right up to that microphone.
You gotta go right up to it.
Yeah. This one is a different mic, so don't go off of me.
Okay.
Sitting far back from it. All right, we are ready to go, so let's go. Here we go.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios,
you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide, and today we've got a little bit of a different... Shit. Hold on. Well, I don't know. Let me do this. I forgot to set up the phones just in case anybody wants to call. And my phone is in the other room. Sorry.
No
Forgive
problem.
Take 2 coming up.
Cut.
Watch that. I have a much bigger belly than you might think. Thank you. Right. Okay. Sorry to whoever's watching now. I forgot to do this.
Behind the scenes view
Yeah.
of production.
This is what they pay for, to see the fuck ups. All right.
Thank you for calling Collins Studios host and call screener line. Please enter your show or meeting number and press pound. That was an invalid number.
No, it wasn't.
Please enter your show or meeting number, followed by the pound key.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Call-In Studio web interface.
Great. And I need to connect. There we go. Connected. Okay. Maybe someone will call. Maybe someone won't. All right.
But at least they can.
At least they can if they want to.
Right.
All right. Here we go. One more time. Take 2.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide. Today, we're talking about something that's a little different from what we normally do on an Ask a Guide. We're not talking about the battle at all today. As you may know, it is the guide exam year. After 7 long years of waiting and sweating and anticipating and developing anxiety, people now have an opportunity to show what they know on December 7th of this year. But we're not the first group of people to do it. No way, no how, sir. And there's been many. For over 100 years, there's been guiding here, and we're going to talk about the history of it. And so it's a little different in that we don't have pre-submitted questions from our patrons. We are doing this recording session on Patreon now, and we have the phone lines open. I'll monitor the phone lines, and at any point, if you want to call in, the number is 717-420-1978. You can give us a call. And by the way, if you're listening to this after the fact because you're not a patron, you can certainly call that number, leave a voicemail, and we will try to get that question answered for you on a future episode of AG Today, our weekly live stream on YouTube. Okay, without any further ado, we're going to welcome our guest, Jasan Hileman. Hello, Jasan. Welcome back.
Hey, thank you, Matt.
You just told me before that this is the first time you've been in the news studio, so it's been over a year. Probably over a year and a half or so since you've been on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I apologize profusely for not having you back anytime sooner. But also, you should apologize to me for not asking to come back.
No, well, actually, we were set up to do this, and that was the day you got stuck in traffic.
Oh,
You're down in Maryland. Oh,
yes. So
you had this nightmarish trip and could not make your way back into the state of Pennsylvania.
Not in time. That's right. So this is overdue.
Would have been, would have been
2 months ago.
Yeah, a little bit sooner, and then then my schedule gets into the way, and so yeah.
I know, it's tough. It's a lot of people don't realize how busy we are here in Gettysburg. There's a lot going on.
I'm not a full-time guide.
And you have a real life outside of guiding.
Yeah, I have a professional.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, so speaking of professionals and guiding and all that stuff, what is the licensed battlefield guide program? The most parks that you go to, there's a park ranger, whether it's a state park or a national park. People are familiar with park rangers. They wear the, green and gray that they wear, and the really cool hats. By the way, you know who wears that hat with the best style and panache at our park here?
At our park?
Yeah. Chris Gwynn.
I was going to say Chris.
Yeah.
Because he has the correct lean to
Yeah. He looks cool with it.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, people are familiar with that. But Gettysburg is unique because we have licensed battlefield guides. And often I talk to tourists and they use the word guide interchangeably with ranger.
Yeah.
They'll say ranger when they mean guide. They'll say guide when they mean ranger. But what is a guide?
A guide is defined, and so I looked this up. A guide definition is showing the way by conducting or leading, imposing direction on another.
Oh, okay.
How about that? And here's a little bit more behind it. This is a process of directing individuals toward goals that have been agreed upon.
Okay.
Think about that as significant. So people come in and they say,
so far I don't want to pay for it.
Can you take me to X? Can you show me? You think about guides. Okay.
Yeah.
It's agreed upon goals. Okay. It involves providing encouragement, giving advice, In productive guiding, the guide is concerned with the progress and satisfaction of those who are being guided. So you can take a guided hunt.
Oh, sure.
Somebody will take you and guide you to go hunt an elk. Somebody will take you and guide you to the top of, the mountain.
Mount Kilimanjaro.
Kilimanjaro.
Yes.
Yeah, you can take a guide. What's one of the earliest guides? Sacagawea.
Right.
She guided the expedition, right?
But she wasn't licensed, though.
She wasn't licensed. But I'd say she was proficient.
I certainly would. She certainly was an authority.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guide. So that's what is when you come to some place, and we'll talk more about this, but you got a lot of other battlefields, and you got actions that are smaller. And if you have a pinpoint occurrence in history, an accident happened, a plane went down, something like even ground zero. It's finite. This a small area. You don't really necessarily need a guide because you can find it. It's right here. Right. You go to the spot. There it is. You read about it. You learn about it. You experience it. Maybe you get some on-site interpretation, but you don't need guided. You take an occurrence as large as the Battle of Gettysburg that I think Dan Sickles wanted to preserve 25 square miles or something like that.
Yeah,
5 by 5
the whole
miles.
county,
the
basically.
Whole, southern, South Central Pennsylvania should be a park. It's a large area. You need somebody to take you, and we'll take we'll talk about when did that start. But you need somebody to take you. Somebody comes and says, "Can you show me where, or can you explain this to me?" That's a typical guide. Yeah, come on. How long do you have? 2 hours. Okay. How long do you have? 3 hours. All right. And we are unique other than Vicksburg.
Right.
So Vicksburg is also licensed this exact same way.
Okay. So before we get to the licensing and all of that stuff and why you even need a license, let's go back to the end of the battle. We always talk about how at the end of the battle, that's when tourism begins. Almost immediately, you have people. Obviously, you have people who are coming to help because it's a disaster area. Yeah. But also, or maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong here. So tell me if I'm wrong with my question here. But after the dust settles of the battle and people just want to come and see the battlefield, who are the earliest guides? Are people coming and getting tours of the battlefield while soldiers are still here convalescing?
Yeah, I would say yes. And I do have to cite my source here. So everything that I've learned about the history of guiding and how this all comes together is from licensed battlefield guide Fred Hawthorne. Mm-hmm. Fred Hawthorne has done an amazing amount of research. He's put together the history of it, a book we have in the guide library. It ought to be published. I told Fred, you should put this all together. People would buy it. They would. And for the guide exam, they are directed to I think it's a 3.5 page Fred put together. He pared down his work. And those preparing for the guide exam, the part on the history of guiding is written by Fred Hawthorne. Okay, and it's like a 3.5 page. It's on the website. It's available, with a click. You can find it out there. But that's what people were directed to. But Fred Hawthorne's the foremost expert, and he's here with us. So just an amazing source for this information, and everything I learned from Fred. But to go back to your question, so the battle's over. And who needs guided? Well, somebody looking for a loved one. They might be dead on the field. And so where does burials happen? And
so they would get a letter from one of the deceased's comrades saying we buried him by a rock on the farm of, Joe Blow.
Right.
And then they come to town and they're like, I'm looking for Joe Blow's farm.
Yeah. And I'm looking for a big rock there or, whatever it is. And, let's touch on the uniqueness of the Battle of Gettysburg.
Okay.
Because a lot of things happen at Gettysburg, including this guiding stuff, that is very unique due to the fact that this battle happens in Union territory, in Pennsylvania. Right. So you think about, and sometimes we overlook this. You think about that the war came this to as the high water mark and everything. But it came all this way north, and then when the war receded back down into southern states, back down into Virginia, that afforded so many opportunities for things to happen at Gettysburg, including the recovery of Union dead, proper burial, the establishment of a national cemetery, Abraham Lincoln's address. All these things are afforded because it's in a Union state. It's immediately available with no worry of your safety.
Right.
You're not crossing war lines.
You're not going into Virginia.
You're not. And that's going to continue into the development of the battlefield and everything because it's a Union victory, turning point in a Union state. And
that's
so,
a really
and
good
it gravitates,
point. Yeah.
right? And it just so happens it's such a big battle. It's such a turning point. But it's on home ground. The Union veterans are the ones who get, all this activity really started.
Right.
But that starts right after the battle. That's unique. If you found out a loved one is wounded or perished at Gettysburg, you can go there.
Mm-hmm.
You can get on a train. You can, travel, get a carriage, get a livery, and go to Gettysburg and actually try to find, right? And so the early people coming are going to try to find somebody local. Can you show me where? And to your point, they're under martial law at this point. The Union Army leaves the cavalry here. The 21st Pennsylvania Cavalry, a section of them are here. Britt Eisenberg would be so proud of me to cite the cavalry. Is they're here, and their job is to keep them from picking up what is federal property. So all the drops, all the weapons, all that stuff, that's all federal property. No taking of anything. And then one of the things they have to get involved in is as people are coming here and they get somebody who, can you take me to so-and-so's farm? I think this is where the unit that my loved one fought with. They start to open graves and it's the wrong one. No, that's not him. Open another one. No, that's not him. Okay, you got to stop. And the Union Army has to put a stop to it. No more hunting.
Yeah.
Searching for a body.
Right.
Okay, we can't allow this to happen.
Yeah.
You're inherently desecrating the burials of people.
Yeah.
Trying to find.
And I'm sure you're not covering them up well either.
Okay, they weren't covered up
to begin with.
Right? Yeah. But now we're unearthing people in like the late July, August.
Ugh.
No. So the Union Army has to put a stop to it.
Yeah.
So if you think about early guiding, it's to help find maybe remains. Where's my loved one in a hospital? Can you tell me where this is or that? And so that would be the beginning of somebody providing a knowledgeable surface to take me or to show me where X is.
So literally just guiding me to a spot. Who would these people be, these early guides? Would they be just any local? Would they be military men who are maybe like wounded but able to get around?
Yeah, so the townspeople would have been some of the earliest. Mm-hmm. Somebody that was here or, lived here. And they can tell you, like, to your, do you know where so-and-so's farm is? Yeah, I know that person.
And would they charge them exorbitant rates?
I don't know of any charging.
I mean, because you hear about the armies complaining about them being charged for water or, you know, a cake or something like that. I wonder if they would do that for someone who was...
you got a nickel?
You got a nickel, I'll take you down to your son's grave. Like, how horrible is that? But, I mean, at a certain point, you can't blame the townspeople if they did, because... how many hundreds or thousands of people are coming to town looking for a loved one? It's taking your time.
And how much have you lost?
Yeah, how much have you lost?
You paid a cost.
Yes, you did.
For what happened here
right.
is what do people immediately think of? Now, how can I take advantage of the situation? That's what led to a lot of things being picked up is, okay, I've lost a lot. If I can recover in some monetary value, the value of something on the field, relics, weapons, whatever, and I can exude some money from it to recover what my loss is.
Extract. I think you want to say extract some money.
Extract some money.
Yeah.
Right. Now, as soon as the war's over, though, now we've got some veterans that were born and raised here.
Yeah.
Some veterans of the 87th Pennsylvania Volunteers, recruited in Adams County, Gettysburg. You have two veterans who come home, William David Holtzworth and another member of the exact same regiment, William Ziegler, William T. Ziegler. Now, Holtzworth is in the 87th Pennsylvania. He fights down at 2nd Winchester and is wounded there. Okay. But he survives the war. He gets wounded again at the Battle of Weldon Railroad in 1864. He survives that wound. And then he's going to come home to Gettysburg. So, and he's one of the earliest documented guide. So a person who has put himself out there as, hey, I can do this. You need somebody to show you where this happened, and show you the field in which it occurred. I can do that. And think about it. Who do we today pick? Who do the television shows pick to do the football game?
Football players.
Football players.
Yeah.
Baseball game? Baseball players.
Baseball players. People who know the game.
I've been in this.
Yes.
I can explain it.
Yeah.
Okay, and I can put it in real terms.
So even though I wasn't here,
I'm a soldier.
I can give you an idea.
I served in the war.
Yeah.
Okay. So Holdsworth speaking from real life experience.
Any of the boys from Company K?
Not that.
Not that you're aware
No,
of?
not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
So the 87th didn't fight here. So Holdsworth was born here in 1843, and he's going to become one of the earliest. And here's the thing: is he and Ziegler go partners in a livery. And I always find this interesting. Fred put all this stuff together, and when you read it, and you go, "Oh yeah, that's pretty cool." All right,
yeah. You got to take a train or you long horseback or buggy journey.
when you travel today, let's say by airplane is
Yeah.
the most common,
Right.
public transportation, but you could take a train. When you get to your destination, what are you lacking?
Transportation while you're there.
Ground
Yeah.
transportation.
Livery
You-
transportation.
You got to rent a car,
Yeah,
right?
or
well,
get a
there's
taxi.
there's no car rent or taxis.
Mhm.
So what was it then in the
Horse.
18
A buggy.
1860s?
Yeah.
It's a horse and buggy.
Yeah.
That's a livery.
Yeah.
That's a service. So when you get here and you want to travel, I don't know, be guided around the field
Mhm.
where the fight
Mhm.
happened,
Mhm.
you need a conveyance. What they're paying for to begin with is conveyance.
That's smart.
So the drivers, the people who offer the livery service, that's how you get money. Is hey, there's people coming, I'll give you a ride. Okay, so really Uber, Gettysburg Uber,
Right.
the early Uber for delivery is the first business.
Yeah.
But Holdsworth and Ziegler, but Holdsworth can do. I'll drive the livery, and I can also speak to it.
Right.
But you're getting paid for the ride, not so much the guide.
Right. Yeah.
But you get a good guide with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty clever though on their part because
Yeah.
now they're making a
Yeah.
business of it.
And if you know town, okay, their livery is on Washington Street. So can you picture the 7-Eleven,
Mhm.
Eagle Hotel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just down the street, livery. Next thing down the street is where the 1884 Harrisburg-Gettysburg Railroad that comes through the McLean
Mhm.
farm, comes down Oak
Yeah.
Ridge,
Yeah.
curves into town. That's where the train station was. So the train station's bringing visitors from the north, from the Harrisburg Railroad,
Okay.
into town. They get off at the station. Their livery's right beside it.
So the station that we know as the train station,
Yeah.
that the foundation owns now,
Yeah.
that's the one Lincoln came to.
Yeah, that's the Hanover Junction.
Right. So that's a different line.
Different railroad.
Yeah.
The railroad I'm talking about is not built till 1884.
Right.
They drive the Golden Spike in 1884.
Yeah. Okay. So at the time of the battle, there was only one station.
Only one station.
Right.
That's the train station, and it's a spur line. It's the Hanover Junction
Right.
spur.
So they get off the train. Now wait, go back to the livery. Where was the livery? Are we saying in the direction of the train station, or was it down across Chambersburg Street?
So the Ziegler, it's called the Ziegler Holtzman livery, is in between where the Eagle Hotel would sit and toward the college.
Like Agway?
Yeah, there's a bank.
Or where
that-
Antica Napoli is. Delicious pizza, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
you
when you
got
come
it.
to town. Antica Napoli.
Yeah. Antica
okay.
Napoli.
So that's where the livery was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the
okay.
train station is on the tracks
Yeah.
just beyond it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, you're
Well, but I mean, I
if you-
guess
if you're
that's
gonna
the way it
offer a
was back
taxi
then.
service,
You put it
you're
right
gonna
by
put it right
yeah.
by it. Where do you put it? Where do you have your Ubers parked? At the airport.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
By the mass transit.
Right.
Okay, so these guys, they've got their little business going there, and they're saying, "Oh, we'll take you around too. We were in the war, blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
Time goes on. Interest in Gettysburg, I'm sure, is growing as time goes on.
Yeah.
Right? People are coming here. what is the type of character that they're encountering who is offering to be a guide to them? What is happening? Because where I'm getting is whatever's happening is going to lead to the federal government stepping in and really making things fun.
Yeah, it's going to take a while for that. But if you go back, so as early as 1878, the Pennsylvania Division of the Grand Army of the Republic. So this is your Union veterans.
Okay.
This is the Common Veterans Organization. It's your VFW. Okay, that's Grand Army of the Republic. The Pennsylvania Division of that in 1878 held their first, what do they call it, annual state encampment here at Gettysburg. And in the next 16 years, they're going to have 14 of them here. So really, it became a routine for the state encampment to be held at Gettysburg. What's that going to do? Every year, people are coming here. They're holding reunions or holding encampments. Okay, so that starts very early. You know, we talk about the battle anniversary encampments and reunions, both Union and Confederate veteran. Those are, books written about all of that. But even as early as, 1878, Pennsylvania Division of GAR, they're holding their annual encampment here. So there's a lot of Pennsylvania veterans that are coming to that encampment. So you got a lot of visitation. And, we say to this day, and I believe it's true, the visitors here and the licensed battlefield guides know more about the Battle of Gettysburg than the participants, because the participants knew their piece of it.
Right.
They're going to come back later and want to learn about what all the other parts of it and how it all, comes together.
So they want to see what everybody else is doing.
They want to see what, yeah, and show me where everybody else was, and also take me back to where, I endured this hell on earth that I lived through, and let me get a chance to look at that.
I can't, I always think about that is, from the perspective of, I always look from the perspective of a Union soldier but it could go for either one. Because it's foreign to most of these guys, this land. Any battlefield you go to, unless you grew up there, right, is going to be foreign to you. And in many cases, you're being rushed to the field, rushed into line.
Correct.
You're not taking, we made a left at the barn and, it's just like, hurry up. And you go, and then you're fighting, and the smoke, the noise, the chaos, the confusion, the blood, the guts, the whole 9 yards. And your world becomes this big. You can't see anything. You're not aware of anything. You're just in what your training's kicking in.
Yep.
And you're only able to react to what you can see and hear. And then, so to come back to this place when it's peaceful and it's quiet, and it's serene and beautiful, it's got to really be a mind effort.
Yeah, and how you remember it.
Yeah.
And what you remember, I the story of General Winfield Scott Hancock when he came back and he looked at where the wounding site was being marked.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking at that and saying, I don't think.
Right.
I don't remember these rocks, or something.
Right.
He's like pointing out, and he's saying, yeah, I don't think so. That doesn't.
But what year was that?
When he came back?
Yeah, 84, you said?
That has to be in the 1880s.
But 20 years later, he comes back.
Yeah, he's back, but still.
But the ground wasn't the same. Like, 20 years.
Things grow. Things get
cut down. Things get moved. Was there a road? When did they put Hancock Avenue in? That was later.
Yeah, I would say it's probably.
So Hancock Avenue wasn't there yet.
There's a farm lane.
Or as he called it, my avenue.
But that's, that's just one example of the exercise John Batchelder, the early historian, is doing with veterans. Is the veterans are coming back, and then they're going out on the field, to mark lines, and they're looking at things. And it's no wonder people are, I don't know.
Right.
Because you were only here for a short period of time, and, it's...
How could you know?
It's not like you're, just taking in the sights. You're pretty...
Yeah.
You're pretty focused on, what's going on.
Yeah.
You got other things on your mind.
You're trying to save your life, and
Yeah.
In the process, you're writing a story that everybody else is going to care about, but you're not thinking that way at the time.
Think about First Corps guys who literally run across the field directly into line of battle.
That's what I'm thinking of, is the Iron Brigade.
Now you're fighting, you're withdrawing, and how long were you out there? I don't know, 30, 40 minutes?
Yeah.
You get driven back, whatever, and then later in the day, you're gone. Somebody takes you back out onto what was the first encounter 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Was this where you were?
Right.
I'm
It's
trying
funny.
to remember. Yeah, I remember crossing a road.
And this is not an apples to apples comparison, so I understand that. But it gives me a little insight into what this must be like. When we were younger, we all got paintball guns, and we went out into the woods by my house. Now, I explored these woods my whole life up to that point, right? I knew every trail. I knew every deer trail. I knew it all, right? I'd go out there all the time, and I would like study the topography and like, here's where the creek goes, and it branches off that way and that way. All this really stupid stuff. It's only like 6 of us, 3 against 3, whatever. And we're kind of like every man for himself. Well, we're on teams, but it's like zone defense or man-to-man defense instead of zone. Anyway, everybody gets knocked out except for me and this other guy. And I get myself down behind this fallen tree. Okay. And I don't know where he is, but I'm, and it's hitting the tree and it's going over the tree and like all this stuff. And every time I'd pop up, I'm like, Jesus, where the hell is this asshole? And finally, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get up and start spraying the woods. And whatever. So I pop up and boom, I get hit right in the lip. We only had goggles on. We didn't have the full face mask because we were men back then. And so I got hit right in the lip, and I thought he threw a rock at me because it hurt. It hurt hits, that bad. Right? And then I felt my lip, and it was numb from being smacked. And I just felt this goo, and I thought he had thrown a rock, and it was just mangled, Yeah. And then I look and I see it's blue, and I was like, oh, okay, it's paint. You got me. But I don't know. Weeks later, the nerd in me went back to visit the battlefield, and I couldn't find the tree. Now, the woods aren't that big. I knew generally the area where it was because I knew the path I took, and then when I jumped off the path. Right. But for the life of me, there were like maybe 5 fallen trees in the woods that I could see. Mm-hmm. And I seem to remember mine having the earth attached to the roots still. Mm-hmm. I couldn't find it. Like I could not find it. But in my memory, that whole little incident, the world went to this tiny little view, and everything around it was blurry.
Right.
So I can only imagine when your life is on the line, how that's affected.
Yeah. So even the participants of the battle itself, when they're coming back, sometimes to the invitation of historian John Batchelder, right, to help with building the history, or through these encampments, they want to be taken out to the field and help figure out where's that log. Right.
So you mentioned John Batchelder.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned him yet. But he's very important in this whole story, right?
Right.
He's like the first Gettysburg historian.
He's that first guy who comes here with the purpose of really documenting and becoming and capturing the history of the battle.
And so he's being guided by veterans of the battle.
Right.
Right.
And writing letters to the units and putting together like the battle lines and the battle history.
Yeah. And what to me is most remarkable is he's doing it as the war is still going on and there are soldiers convalescing here. Like he had, right? Is that?
I think he has some early encounters during that time.
Right. But some guys that are able to like walk him out on the field and stuff. But it continues, obviously.
The main efforts will come even after it becomes the Battlefield Commission, 1895. It becomes Gettysburg National Military Park, and then their charge is to mark all the lines. Yeah, right. Mark and document all the lines. But
okay, so now back into the early 1900s. Then.
But in an early publication, this is it, right taken out of a newspaper. Guide to the Battlefield. As a guide to the battlefield is very necessary. The reader is directed to Major Holdsworth. That's David Holdsworth,
right? Who
is the best posted man to be found, and thoroughly affable.
Okay.
So he's knowledgeable, and he's an affable person. So we're going to talk, different times about what makes a good guide, but he's the best posted man to be found and thoroughly affable. He makes the great story of the battle most absorbing and tells it in such a way that the listener is not confused. And his salient points of the conflict, Major Holdsworth, can be found at the Eagle Hotel, Gettysburg.
So what's interesting is even back then, was you and I were talking before we started recording, and we were talking about, advice for prospective guides or aspiring guides. And, the thing you keep stressing is, that you have to be understandable to the average person. And even back then, when people, an eighth grader could pass a test that a full-grown man who graduated college can't pass today. Have you seen those tests?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. But even back then, you needed to, I don't want to say dumb it down, but for lack of a better word, simplify it.
Make it understandable.
Make it understandable.
Correct.
And that was an important thing. Okay, but so we digress again. So we're trying to get to what were some of the examples of the bad behavior that caused the federal government to legislate?
Yeah, so if we fast forward to the 25th anniversary reunion, so we're going to go 1888.
Okay.
25th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a guide advertisement. It talks about the hack race. So hack, that's livery.
Yep.
So
hack horses.
You're gonna get a ride. You're gonna get your at the bottom of this notice. It says, at the time of the reunion, the town will be filled with hacks from all around the country. So due to the size of events here, there's not enough local everyday volume to be able to handle it. Mm-hmm. So when they would hold such an event, it's like Uber. Yeah. When there's a big football game in a town, people come with their flocks. Uber. They come in, they're there for the event, and they go back home, right? That's what happens here. Is this town will be filled with hacks from all around the country, the owners of which hope to make all the money they can. They cannot be regulated, charge what they please, and Gettysburg gets the blame for it. There will be hacks from places 50 and 60 miles away. Most of them will deal fairly, but some will take advantage of anyone.
Well, now,
so what's this? This is buyer beware.
Let me quibble with this assertion here that, in other words, they're saying they're price gouging. Is that what they're saying?
Yeah.
But if I'm coming from 60 miles away and I am taking my hack horses with me, did they have, big F1 or F250s with horse trailers back then?
Nah.
How would they do it? They would like in a herd, right? Well, how would they get them here? Train?
They probably brought them here over the road.
My point is,
it took them 4 days to get here. Whatever.
It's like gasoline, right? If you live close to the ports, it's cheaper. If you live further out in the middle of nowhere, it's more expensive because it costs more to get to you. So they're
not here to do it for free.
No, of course not. Why would you?
But what they're saying, that their advice to the people who are coming is just be cautious, and understand, that's what you're going to encounter.
Yeah.
Is there's going to be a lot of people coming in here to offer their services. Buyer beware. A lot of people are going to treat you fairly, but there may be people who are just trying to take advantage as well.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
And I mean, I'm sure there were people who were legitimately trying to take advantage.
Yeah.
But if to say that a person coming from 60 miles away is, because he's more expensive, he's taking advantage of the whole thing, I think is a little unfair. But you know what? These people are all dead, so it doesn't matter.
The closer you are, the less overhead you have, the less it costs you. I mean, I can understand people aren't going to charge the same rate.
Sure. And by the way, I'm not trailering automobiles here. I'm walking my horses. That wears them out.
And I have to take them home.
I got to take them home. I got to feed them.
I had to pay somebody to stable them here, feed them here, water them here.
I would almost say it's not worth it for me. I can't make enough money to do it because then I would have to charge way too much.
Correct. So that's 1888. And then a number of things happened immediately after that. So the Gettysburg Electric Railroad Company is chartered in 1891. Our William D. Holdsworth dies in August 21st, 1891. So Holdsworth's no longer on the scene. Guess what happens in 1895? The Sickles Act creates Gettysburg National Military Park. Remember, the 25th anniversary, 1888, that's before there is a military park.
Right.
That's Gettysburg Battlefield Memorial Association property and monumentation. Okay. GBMA transfers their holdings to the Gettysburg National Military Park. Henry Ford manufactures his first automobile on June 4th, 1896. This is going to usher in a change of times. Okay, so in 1900, there were 4,000 automobiles manufactured. by 1913, 50th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, there are almost 1 million automobiles that have been produced.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
So the nature of things is going to start to change from the only way you really come to Gettysburg is by train.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 1884, there's such an interest in people who want to come to Gettysburg that it warrants a passenger train from Harrisburg down to Gettysburg. That's how you get your Harrisburg-Gettysburg line. That their station is there on Washington Street. Okay, you also have the Hanover line that's here. And so you got the public transportation, you got local livery. Now the way that people can come to the battlefield, tourism, is changing. Now if you come, you have your own transportation. I don't have to talk to anybody. I brought my own car.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting that things are now going to start to change, that you don't have to have a driver. Early on, everybody had to have a driver, and then do you get a guide with that?
Right.
Okay. And early on, those were two different jobs, two different roles. You're either a hack driver or you're a guide.
Right.
Okay. And so keep that thought.
So like today, you're either a bus driver or a guide.
Or the guide.
Yeah.
You're not both.
You're not, no.
Yeah, you're typically not both. Okay. So when you go to the 1913 50th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, of course, highly attended. Here's where we start to get into the quality of guiding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've already brought into question people who are charging different exorbitant amounts, maybe trying to take advantage of people. But here's a quote from somebody who attended the 1950th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, and it's estimated. Fred pulled information that says maybe nearly as many as 100 people were guiding. 100 were guiding at the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg. That's pretty crazy. And there's a Eagle Hotel advertisement. It has right on it, secure, reliable guides. Right on their advertisement. You can get reliable guides at the Eagle Hotel. And this was a quote by one of the participants. I have heard some of the best descriptions given by many guides, and I have also heard some of the worst. Some of these guides who have teams, not the Microsoft teams, by the way.
How much easier that would have made things back then, though.
Have never made a historic study of the field and obtained what little they know of what took place there. From a smattering of stories they picked up, or from what came to them from their own conceptions, ideas, and exaggerated rumors. Okay. The visitor arrives and is immediately surrounded by guides soliciting patronage. Some of these are good, but most of them are poor and illiterate. Illiterate. On my last visit with some friends, the guide took us to the angle first, which, by the way, that used to be the way the tour route started. You started at Hancock Gate and went down south on Hancock Avenue, and the angle was first.
Was that because the visitor center was there?
That was a tour route. Yeah. Thank goodness it's reversed. I'd hate to frame it that way.
Yeah, right.
I'd have to come back. No, just don't look there.
No, right.
We'll come back here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I drive past it. So on my last visit with some friends, the guide took us to the angle first instead of last, mixed everything else up. Instead of leaving well pleased and impressed, you leave with no clear comprehension of the event except that there was a lot of men killed. How'd you like that to come out of your guide?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I got confused. I don't even know what order it happened in, but there's a lot of people who died there.
Right.
What?
So, and this is still before they actually passed the legislation.
Oh yeah,
right?
no,
so
this is all
complaints.
leading up to. Yeah, these are all complaints. We're still in, the early days, 1900s. We're not going to get to a guide exam until 1915.
Right. I wonder what some of the for these less learned guides, like what the numbers they were giving were, like how many people died, and because a lot of people to this day think that 51,000 casualties means 51,000 dead.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that was still the common misconception
they're
back
over exaggerating things.
Yeah.
Those are assumptions. Nobody's gonna prove you wrong.
Yeah. This subject here is a little out of order, but I don't want people to get impatient and hang up when they're in the queue.
Okay.
6Q. By the way, 6 questions. Lentz is on, and he wants to ask about guide uniforms. Go ahead. 6 questions.
Yeah. So I know that, of course, we're getting to the licensing and, of course, the federal statute about licensing the guides at Gettysburg. But some of the questions I have are about uniforms. How early were the uniforms stipulated that guides should be wearing, and what were some of the requirements? that they were to wear.
I have a feeling he knows the answer to this already, Jason. Do you ever get that sense when you hear
Sometimes.
6 questions?
Not like I haven't.
He has such good questions.
Hey, Mike. By the way, hey, thanks for calling. Yeah. So after the examination, that's when the uniform is going to come into play, and it's going to look like a military uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like a cop
Yes.
back in those days, because you had the hat.
And keep that thought, and a badge.
Right. Which
know,
you still have a badge.
which we still have
But
a
you
badge.
wore it back then. Is that not correct? It was
Yeah.
on your chest.
Yeah. A lot of us wear it on our belt.
Right.
Some have a pocket and a holder for the badge. But it was also at times there was also the emblem was on the hat.
The hat, yeah.
It was right here in the middle.
Yeah.
I think
it wasn't no baseball cap. It was like a real copper hat.
It
Yeah.
looked like a military officer's
Right.
hat.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool uniform.
Yeah, and they've
Must
gone
have-
through uniforms, different variations of uniforms. There's one with the bloused pants,
Yeah.
with the baggy pants, with the gaiters.
Oh yeah,
They come
yeah.
up, look like
I
World War
haven't
One.
seen that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I was gonna say must have been around World War One, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you look, very, very official with and they also wore their 9-star pointed badge right on their chest.
Yeah.
Okay. This is also going to lead to some poor behavior, because when they were in that uniform and they had that badge, and there was no stipulation at that time of how you could get tours, how you could procure tours. So the square in Gettysburg was a show.
A what?
And that was a real show going on
Oh,
down there,
oh.
because you got guides.
Yeah.
And they would actually use their badge and step out in front of vehicles, and people thought they were police.
Of course.
That's law. Okay, so they stopped the car and they said, "You need a tour, don't you?"
Oh God, can you imagine?
Yeah, hey, I can give you a tour of the
It's
battle.
hard enough
Well, I
getting through that
stopped because I
square.
thought you were police.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, right. How many people said, "Oh, thank you for scaring the shit out of me. Yes, I'd
Oh,
like to take
actually-
a tour. Hop in."
Actually, now that you mention it, we are looking for a guide.
Please, nobody did that.
Jump on the running board.
Right.
And they would jump on the running board, hold on to the mirror. Okay, go ahead and go. You don't have a seat for me? I'll ride right here. Okay, turn right here.
Those were the days, man.
Yeah, those are the days.
Could you imagine doing that today?
And-
Nobody has running boards.
The town had to pass an ordinance, and I got it here somewhere.
Okay.
Town council passes an ordinance restricting solicitation methods. Guides are forbidden from stepping more than 2 feet from the curb. That's in the ordinance. They are forbidden from stepping 2 feet from the curb in pursuit of a trip, and they called it a trip, a guided tour. It was a
Right.
trip.
Right.
Okay, but at some point too, they have to, in terms of that uniform, Mike, they have to take the badge away from them, because the star badge
Oh no.
is being used in a negative way to put yourself off as some sort of law enforcement stopping
Yeah,
vehicles,
yeah.
and so they take the badges away from them.
So,
Right.
but now we're jumping ahead to
We
after,
jumped ahead, yeah.
yeah, just because of the question there. But
Yeah,
this at first is not one of the
Yeah.
problems. This is not one of the problems that leads to the licensing program. But this is a problem
That
since
leads
the
to
licensing.
rules, yes.
Yeah, okay.
After
So
initial
we'll
licensing, then comes a lot of other rules,
and we'll get to that.
that we just accept today. But you wonder,
Why are
I
they
have
there?
to get my tour to
Yeah.
VC or certain things. I'm not just and why do you not see guides with their own guide pages? Like if you want to book a tour with me,
Right.
Click here.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
you're
how
jumping
many-
ahead. Don't jump ahead
yeah,
now.
right,
let's
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right, Mike. Anything else on the uniforms?
Yeah, so about 3 or 4 different iterations of uniforms through the years, Mike. But early on, shortly after
Okay,
licensing,
yeah.
they did want them to look all the same. So they're very official looking. They're badged, same hats, color tops and bottoms, and then they'll go through various iterations of that to the current format, which is
I imagine
the gray slacks and blue shirt.
They were probably wool too, weren't they?
At various stages, there's a wool pants and wool top.
Ugh. Can you imagine?
And
Go ahead, Mike.
And so the question I have following that up is, you're having that issue of you're having to license the guides now. The uniforms were there, and this seems like a very stupid question, but the uniforms were there to distinguish the licensed guide from everybody else, right?
Yeah, so it's recognizable that if somebody's out there providing guiding, they're not in uniform. You're not in uniform. That's unlicensed guiding,
Right.
what they refer to it today, and so you might be able to pick up on that. They don't have the badge. They don't have the credentials. That's how you could enforce it as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good point, Mike.
All right, Mike. Thank you very much for the call.
That's it.
Okay,
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good one. See you later. If you want to call in, 717-420-1978 is the phone number. Call in with a question about the history of guiding for Jason Hileman. Okay, Jason, so now let's go back in time where we left off, leading up to legislation. What were the problems that caused that? So continue with your...
Yeah, so you go through, you think about the 25th anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, and you read these news articles, and in both instances, you've got a lot of veterans here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are experiencing and seeing this issue. But they're also getting a sense that, you know, a lot of civilians, a lot of citizens come here. That's probably not going to decrease, yet the quality of what they hear, of what they're being presented is, there's an issue with historical accuracy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Coupled with that, with the fact that in 1895, when the Gettysburg National Military Park is established, it's a War Department running this, and it's the government, but it's the War Department. And don't ever lose sight of the fact that in the post-war years, the veterans organizations are a powerful political lobby. The elected officials pay attention to what the veterans' concerns are.
Yeah.
What's important to them.
And a lot of them are probably holding office too, right?
Okay, and so things like the accuracy of where they fought and died and for what and how it happened are really, okay. And so there are letters written addressing the issue and talking to the Gettysburg National Military Park Commission, and one of the letters written back from the acting Secretary of War, Breckinridge was his last name, is in regard to a letter of August 23rd. This is in 1913, so it's after the 50th. So this is in the wake of the 50th anniversary.
Okay.
Regarding guides for the Gettysburg battlefield, you'll remember that on the occasion of one of my visits to Gettysburg, I made the same suggestion, to wit, that only licensed guides should be permitted to ply their trade on the battlefield, and that the prerequisite to such a license should be an examination as to the knowledge of the battle. If you will draw up the proper regulation, I shall be glad to approve it. He wrote that back to the Colonel, I think it was Nicholson, John Page Nicholson, who was one of the early battlefield commissioners. And so there's this whole issue now being addressed by the War Department, by the government, of this issue of, who should we? It's our park. We have the authority. Do we have the authority to govern this, to regulate this? We want to, but do we have it? So we're going to have to actually make that official. So they're going to have to draw up a regulation that gives them the authority, that spells that out. That as a matter of fact, in the operation of these parks, that's part of what our authority is. And so they draw up a government regulation, federal reg, and in that reg it states that no person shall be permitted to offer their services or to act as a guide in any park unless licensed for that purpose by the commissioners or superintendent thereof. Now, notice it doesn't say Gettysburg.
Right. Because it's a military park.
This reg can to this day be applied to many other places, including Antietam and other battlefields. They're just not.
Wait, read it again slowly.
Okay. No person shall be permitted to offer their services,
money,
paid, or to act as a guide in any park unless licensed for that purpose by the commissioners or superintendent thereof. Superintendent applies today.
So this is interesting because technically I can't say to my friends, guys, let me take you around the battlefield for free. Because it says, what's the second thing? It says offering services or
to act as a guide.
Or to act as a guide.
I think the interpretation today is as acting as a guide is for monetary purposes.
Well, they're
You're being
both
compensated.
They're both for monetary purposes. Then, so
Right.
what's the difference? Why would you say it's
the way it's enforced today is you can take
the
your
way
friends
it's
out.
enforced? Yeah,
And
yeah.
teacher can bring their school bus here, and they're
Sure.
not being paid specifically to act as a guide.
I understand that,
Right.
but really, the English version of it is you can't even take your kids around.
It sounds in this
Right.
like, hey, don't be doing that.
Right. But I think
Because you're ill-equipped to do it.
I think if from the veterans' point of view, not that I know their point of view, but if I were one of them, I wouldn't even want that. I wouldn't even want Matt saying to his friends, "Let me take you around the battlefield," because what I did is so important. I don't want some idiot misrepresenting it or whatever.
Explaining it to your family, and you don't know what you're talking
You know what you're talking about, because then that misinformation is getting out there. I'm so sick of that word. That incorrect information is getting out there, and it's just interesting the way it's written, because they don't enforce it that way today,
Right.
but and it's unenforceable anyway today in that regard.
It's tough.
Like how are you? Who's going to go after everybody that points and like, oh my God, get them?
Yeah, you got a ring binder.
Right.
Yeah, what's in the binder?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
what do you got there?
Yeah, it could just be studying with your buddy.
Are you paying him?
Exactly. It's
Because
too
if
much.
you're doing it for free, you're not breaking the law.
No.
Right.
Well, but you are.
Yeah.
But you're not.
And it goes on to say that they shall be furnished with an official badge, Mike. There's your official badge.
There you go.
Official badge as evidence of their authority, which shall remain the property of the United States. You know, these badges to this day, if I quit,
You give it back.
you have to give it back. It's not my badge.
Right.
You know, they want that back. Shall be returned to the park authorities upon revocation of their license. Okay, so if I quit or get, unlicensed, then I got to give the badge back
Yeah.
because that's still the sign of my authority.
Well, that is interesting. Somebody in the comment section just said the Gettysburg National Military Park's interpretation of that reg based on the current standards is by the letter of the law. So no more scouts or students without an LBG.
Get out of here. And the
They're
other
not
thing-
going to do that. That one they can't. That's so unenforceable. Like there's no way. You'd have to stop every person you see.
Yeah, and I always go. Me personally, this is just me personally. I don't get too awfully bent out of shape about it because to me it's not about the money, but it is about the message.
Yeah, sure.
Like go back to the reasons why people felt like this needs to be framed up and regulated. Is you got to do respect and honor to what happened here.
Yeah,
Lincoln's word, not forget what they did here.
Right,
and don't change that. Make sure that there's integrity. There's a high degree of importance put on being able to know and articulate what happened accurately.
Mm-hmm.
That's giving those who fought here their justice.
Their due. Just desserts
of what they did. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why. So if I see a professor, a teacher, and you are highly knowledgeable people, like people who are authors, and want to come out here and do a tour, I get it. That's the way it's written. But are they going to do it just desserts? Are they going to do it give it the right respect and interpretation?
Yeah,
they are. They're not doing anybody any dishonor by doing it. But this is the way it's written. And so, through a lot of the CUAs and special permits today, you got to use a licensed battlefield guide. So they're coupling a lot of things with guides.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. But if you got a professor from, such and such college and they're doing Civil War studies, I think they've done their homework.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Right.
And so, I personally don't get caught up in it. But that's the way the reg is written, is that should be the way it's handled.
Well, let's talk to another caller here. We have Eric, who wants to talk about the greatness of his cleanse, which I don't think is what he really said, but the auto screen often gets that wrong. Eric, you're on the air. Go ahead with your question for Jason. How's your cleanse doing?
Yeah, I don't know what that was about, but
are you losing any weight on this cleanse?
I hope so. So this might be something that you were going to get to, and it might be a little bit out of order, but I got to go to dinner here in a little bit with family, so I wanted to call in and ask now. So has there ever been any regulations and or addressing this later to allow for it, has there already been any regulations regarding what we'll just call discrimination by race or by sex? And was that ever addressed at any point in time where they removed that? Certainly we have a lot of great, female guides now.
Mm-hmm.
Was there ever a time that they were not allowed, and did they ever address to say they
Good
are
question.
allowed now?
That's a great question, Eric.
Absolutely. And so as far as race, I do not know. I believe it seems to me I read somewhere there was a black guide or black guides.
Okay.
Okay, so men, I think, were allowed. I don't know of any race. That would be a great
Was
question.
it? Did they explicitly say no women?
Yes.
They
So
did.
there were no women allowed until that barrier is broken. The first female guide was in 50 years of 1968.
Really?
Yes. And
So they were allowed in
Barbara
the...
Shute is the first licensed female guide, and I do believe that was by practice.
What do you mean by practice?
In other words, they wouldn't examine a female. It wasn't just that there was no females interested. I don't think it went that many years.
They wouldn't give them.
They wouldn't let
test.
them take the exam.
Oh, by the practice of not giving them.
There
an
isn't
exam.
a. Yeah, we're not proctoring the exam for females. There's no female licensed battlefield guides until they opened it up to guides, and then,
Now, is that because the tradition started with veterans and they thought that you had to be a veteran in order to talk about military?
I think it was just one of those
Or
things.
is it
That
just
this is
like
a man.
no
this
girls
is a male-
allowed?
Right, that's correct.
Yeah.
This is a male profession.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
Anything else, Eric?
So 1968 is the first female, and they just so we celebrated 50 years of female women in guiding in 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many have we had since 1968?
Excuse me. It was interesting. So in 2018, there had been 50 women guides.
In 50 years.
50
Okay.
years, 50 women.
Yeah,
guides.
all right.
Yeah, yeah. And then all the active ones, they got together and they took pictures and everything. And
Yeah.
I wear the pin, the 50 years of female women in guiding.
Do you?
On my dress uniform.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's one of the big historical things in guiding that occurred while I was a guide. I never want to forget that.
Now, you mentioned a dress uniform. So there's a different uniform.
Oh, yeah, we have what we call a Class A dress uniform, which is the light blue shirt with the gray slacks, but a tie, and it's all the same tie. It's a striped tie.
Oh, and the blazer.
And then the blazer
Yeah.
with the guide emblem on
Yes.
the left
Okay.
chest.
Yeah. Like kind of like the PGA jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Sort
that's our what they call a Class A dress uniform.
Okay.
Like there are still guides today. I was talking to the guys out there today, and they were wearing a tie.
Just giving a tour?
Just regular tours, and they wear a tie every day. So they wear the tie with the shirt. I don't see any guides today wearing the blazer, but you can.
Yeah.
You could wear your dress blazer, during tours.
Huh. Okay. Very good. All right. What else now? So now let's go back. Sorry that the questions take you out of order, but
you got to get to dinner.
we
Thanks
gotta
for calling, Eric.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for
gotta
calling.
Get to dinner.
And that's the thing. I don't want people to hang up while they're waiting.
Yeah. So this, because of the bad behaviors, right? Not misinformation, pricing, the government steps in and says, you know what? We got to make sure that we license them. Let's get the regulation written. We're gonna do a knowledge exam, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next step they're gonna do after we cover the knowledge exam is gonna be pricing. We'll set the pricing, and not everybody's allowed to charge whatever they want for whatever
Right.
So that's the other thing that will become regulated. So if you think about the bad behaviors that were witnessed in the early reunions, 25th, 50th anniversary, leading up to the first exam of 1915.
Now that first exam, who wrote them?
So the first exam was written by Emmer Cope, which he's in the history of the park. He's the engineer
Cope map.
The Cope map.
Yeah.
He's the engineer of the park. And William Storick, which was an early I think he's on the commission, but he's a member of that commission. But William Storick's background, I think by profession, he's a forestry. He's in forestry, and you think, why is it forestry? But he was an educator.
Right.
So he has a background as a teacher.
Yeah.
So he's got that
He knows
perspective of writing a test. Emmer Cope knows the battle.
Have you ever seen any questions from the 1915 exam?
It's in some of the stuff that Fred has written.
I've seen it.
He has some of those questions. Yeah.
They're pretty tough.
It's pretty what? And the first exam was red.
All in red ink?
No. It was read to them.
Oh.
So you all come in, and who they're examining are people who are out there doing it.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So when they say, hey, we're going to do an exam, it's the people who, imagine now, you're getting on a moving train here as a government.
Mm-hmm.
There's people already guiding.
Right.
Now imagine that perspective. Wait a minute. You're going to do what?
Yeah.
I've been guiding here for, 10 years.
F you, Uncle Sam.
Yeah, what up?
Right.
All right. No, we're going to have an exam.
Yeah,
you're going to have to study, and you're going to have to answer these questions, okay? So you think people are prepping now, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, but when they got them into the exam, and they're going to read them the question. You write your answer. Then I'll read you the next one. And so they're going to read through these. And I'm pretty sure Fred said they never did quite get through all 100 or something.
I'd imagine not.
Yeah. 51 questions were administered.
Okay. God.
It's like, why'd you write 100 if you're not going to use
I remember
them?
one of them I saw was like basically to describe the dispositions of both armies from like June 3rd to June maybe 25th. I can't remember the date range exactly.
Right.
But it was a big range. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like each corps and where they were? Like that's crazy.
And how are you going to use that? Why is that important?
Exactly. Yeah.
So September 2nd, 1915. That's the first exam.
Okay.
And so I took the exam December, I think it was 2nd,
Yeah.
2015. So
100
I
years.
always like to say I took the 100-year anniversary of exam.
Okay. Nice.
So I was in that 100th anniversary exam.
Yeah. Sorry, that's my call waiting. I'll just ignore that. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So that is the 100th anniversary. So that's the first exam. And now here's a little piece that you can tell they are conscientious or understanding to the people who have already been guiding. Based on your exam result, you either got ranked a first-class guide, a second-class guide, or a third-class guide based on your result of your exam. You're not kicked out.
Yeah.
But you didn't do well. Okay? First-class guides, you passed. Second-class and third-class guides, you're not allowed to stay second- and third-class guides. Study. We're going to re-exam you.
Okay.
In the meantime, keep doing what you're doing. Okay? But you're not going to perennially guide here as a second or third-class guide because you didn't get enough right.
So, but that's fair. They let them continue.
You can tell that
and-
they're implementing
yeah,
existing guide force, right?
Right.
You're
It ain't
not
going to
out.
be this easy
It's not just
in future years.
cut your head off, but study.
Right.
You got to take this exam, and eventually you need to qualify as a first-class guide, or you're not going to guide here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can tell they're being a little understanding about that.
Um,
And they offered a guide school, so to help them learn.
oh, okay.
So in early 1916, they said, hey, February and March, when things are a little slow, we're going to do school. So we're going to run the second and the third class people through a school.
So that's interesting. I always thought that was a maybe late 20th, early 21st century addition to the process, but that guide school has been there since the beginning.
Yeah, and the what you're thinking of today that's called the Guide Academy.
Yeah.
That's put on by the Association of Licensed Paddle Guide. That's
No,
not
not-
officially by the park.
No, not that. No, like
You're
you-
talking
like
about
charm school or whatever you call it.
you're talking about tier 3.
Yeah, tier 3 now.
Tier 3
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
examination process.
Yes.
That's not so much knowledge exam though.
Oh,
This school I'm talking about, they're
Oh.
teaching them information.
Oh, so they're not teaching them how to
hey,
guide.
you obviously don't know enough about the Battle of Gettysburg.
Right.
We're going to have a class for you. You got to take schooling so you can understand, the facts of the Battle of Gettysburg.
Okay.
So they're
Wow.
actually helping them officially, helping them through so that they can pass the exam. And like I said, you don't see that today. That's all on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to come here, you come prepared. We're going to give you the exam questions. If you don't get them, you don't qualify high enough, that's on your own.
But
come back the next time.
At this point, at least, they're trying to like bring everybody into the fold of what they want it to be. So they're kind of being a little more lenient and accommodating.
Yeah, I like to
right?
say they're improving the existing workforce.
Right.
They have a workforce. They're meeting the demand. These are the people who are guiding. We're strapping an exam process on you.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to meet qualification, minimum qualifications. Those of you who didn't, come in February, March, we're offering a school. But you're going to be re-examined. If you don't qualify as first, eventually, we're going to enforce this. You're out. But
Right.
we're giving you ample notice. We're giving you an opportunity to improve your knowledge, and then you'll be out.
What would the fine have been if you were caught guiding without a license back then?
Yeah, so the enforcement of unregulated, unlicensed guiding began October 17th of 1915.
Okay.
That's when the first time when they said, hey, if you haven't taken the exam, if you're not a first, second, or third class guide, we better not catch you out there.
So they give it in September. They enforce the
In October.
law in October.
Because we have our first, second, and third class guides.
And they're allowing them, the people who've been examined and passed, they're allowing them to continue as
Yes.
they've been going. So it's okay that they, okay, right, gotcha. Huh.
Yeah, and
That's interesting.
And there is a fine.
I bet there is.
There is a fine for getting caught.
I'm sure there
without
is.
proper without proper guiding. And so here's the rates. The summer of 1917.
Wait, let me guess.
Go ahead. What do you think it is per hour?
Is it a 2-hour tour, or was it?
Just give me a per hour.
A per hour.
Or you can give me a 2-hour tour.
Is that how they sold them back then? 2-hour tours, like they do today?
They have it priced for the first hour and then the second hour.
Oh, so it's like
You get a discount on your second hour.
right. $1.99 the first minute, 99 cents each additional minute, like that type of a thing.
Oh, Matt,
So it's
you can tell you're an
$2.
entrepreneur. You're close. That's $1.50 for the first hour,
$1.50
and $1 for the second hour.
Okay.
So it's $2.50 for a 2-hour tour.
Wow.
That's a deal, man.
Man, oh, Shevitz, that's something. But I mean,
and if there's a bigger group, now catch this. There's three levels of tour pricing. You got
Right.
1 to 6 people, 7 to 15, and then 16 and above. Right. Today is that there were volume rates then.
Okay.
Caravan was $2. So if you got a caravan of cars, $2 for the first hour and $1.50 for the second hour.
and a caravan would just be 2 or more.
More than one vehicle.
Yeah.
And what are we doing today? 1 to 6. How many people fit in a typical car?
Yeah.
1 to 6.
Yeah.
Now we just doing it by hand.
Let's talk to Chunky. Chunky, you're on the air.
Hello, sir.
Yes, hello. Calling from Australia. Chunky is calling us right now. Go ahead, Chunky. What do you want to know about guiding?
I have many questions.
Just give us one.
Take them one at a time.
Well, okay, I've got two. He's been looking into the history of guiding, obviously. What's his most favorite? Like, if he could witness or even do a tour personally in an area of the guiding there in Gettysburg, what would it be?
Like, in other words, what era of the park's history would he want to watch a guide give a tour in?
Yeah, or even give a tour. Like, is there a part of that history of the battlefield that would be most interesting?
Yeah, I think I understand your question. So my answer would be in that post-war era, I would say, of monumentation, when the actual veterans were coming here.
Oh yeah,
the generals, like Longstreet's here, Sickles is here, the big participants.
That's a
the
good
veterans,
answer. Yeah,
right. I'd like to be in a carriage with some of those folks.
Sure.
Yeah, like in that Holdsworth era, where Holdsworth's still in the livery. And you see the famous people getting their picture taken, being taken around.
Done double standing
I'd
stuff.
like to be there.
Yeah.
During that era.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good answer. I like that answer.
So that would be my answer to that. What?
Anything else, Chunky? Chunky's real name is Grant, but he likes.
What about you? Do you have an answer as well, Mark?
No, I don't. I never really thought of that. I mean, I guess it's pretty lame. I would just agree with Jason. I would like to come here when the veterans were coming.
Group, very prominent military group. I won't mention the unit. but I got to do
20th
that
Maine.
unit and take them around the field, 3-hour tour.
Why was that? Just because of
they're current warriors. They're current soldiers,
right?
And so they're going out there putting their life on the line, and they're coming here looking at who preceded them, what was this like, what's the sacrifice like, and learning leadership concepts that they can apply to their own leadership today.
So that's got to be. So you're teaching current warriors about previous warriors. That's got to be something to witness.
That's a flattering moment for me. We have a lot of guys that are veterans. So, I mean, I think about, Colonel Rob Abbott. Colonel Rob Abbott. Doug Dowd. Doug Dowd.
Another colonel. All these colonels.
Yeah, I know. He's high ranking.
Yeah, really.
I'm a civilian. I'm a citizen. I've never been in the military. But for me to do that's pretty flattering. That's an honor. That's a privilege. And the other one I would tell you is a direct descendant of a participant. One of the generals. I did.
You won't say who?
Gary.
Oh, Gary,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so I had Gary's descent. And they said, can you show us where, and they didn't know they had a monument there. That
Really?
Gary had a statue.
Did they know that Charlie Fennell dedicated it?
No. And they didn't know that Gary marched, that Gary's division marched straight down
lost.
to Baltimore Pike and got lost.
They went shopping.
Marched away from the battle. So I had to strap that on them. But,
yeah.
So those are the two. That's my answer. Chunky, right? Chunky. So what time is it in Australia right now?
It's like 3 days
That's
from now.
my name.
What time is it, Chunky?
What time is it there?
About 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We're his morning show.
There you go.
Yeah. He constantly listens to AG Today on Thursdays.
Yeah, and I've been guiding for 8 years, so that's my most memorable one is the military unit.
I went on a staff ride. I was fortunate enough to be invited on a staff ride by a listener that Rob Abbott gave.
Yep.
And here we have current serving military men listening to a staff ride given by a retired Marine colonel. And of all the tours I've gone on, this was my absolute favorite. And I had to leave early because I had a recording or something to do. I can't remember what it was. But I didn't want to leave because it was so fresh. It was as if I had never been here on a tour before because I'm hearing a military man speak to military men about very real, very practical military concerns and needs and things. And, just simple things like adrenaline.
Yeah.
What happens when the adrenaline runs out? Just that. And I never thought of that before. But I did there because Rob asked the question, I just loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I would love to finish one with Rob or any military man. I just love listening to them speak.
I agree
about stuff that I just have no idea about, and I hope I never experience. But it's fascinating to watching people do what they do or listening to people talk about what they know and I just love that. Seeing people in their element,
Right, yeah.
Really great.
Yeah.
Chunky, thank you for the calls.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it's a very interesting topic.
I just hung up on him. Okay. It's a little thing Grant and I have there. Okay. So now where did we leave off? That's so confusing. Okay. So now we've given the exam, we've licensed guides. Now we've got, now regulations start to appear because just because you have a license doesn't mean you behave well, doesn't mean you do things.
Yep.
And you play things out as you go along.
Yep.
And you feel things out and you learn or whatever, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But we have to take a break for a commercial, so we'll take a break. We'll be right back after these words. Okay, now everybody watching sees that we don't actually play the commercials now. I edit them in later.
Oh,
okay.
So if
this
you're
is very
Patreon,
exciting.
you don't have to
You're
do
a
that.
patron, you don't have to sit through that crap.
All right.
Okay. And now we can get right back to it. Let me just make a quick little space on the audio so I can see where to put them in. So it's going to be muted for a second, everybody. Relax. Okay, you ready to come back?
Sure.
Okay, wasn't that an exciting commercial break? We are back now with Jasan Hileman. We are talking about the history of licensed battlefield guides here at Gettysburg, and we're taking your calls, 717-420-1978. Call in if you have any questions here. All right, regulations. So let's get into that now, because we all love regulations. They make life easier. They make life so much fun. They're really great for creativity, and they're really something that really just brings about happiness for everybody who has to live under them. Correct?
Absolutely. Oh,
Yes.
it's amazing. Yeah, it's
Okay.
fantastic. We love it.
So-
Red tape.
So some of the now, I imagine it wasn't, as we like to say, the Wild West.
Right.
Immediately after giving the license, there had to be some regulations that were built in from the beginning.
Right.
Correct?
Right. Well,
Yes.
you had to pass the exam. You had to have your badge,
Uniform.
uniform. Look the part.
Price was fixed.
But then there's some other things that come about that weren't addressed.
Okay.
For example, solicitation continues to be a nagging issue
To this day.
after the licensing.
Oh.
So there's people around the square, in the middle of the roundabout, in the middle of Gettysburg. They're allowed to solicit for tours anywhere they want. And so that, for the borough, is a nagging issue. You got the safety of them. I read the regulation of them jumping in front of traffic.
Right.
You're using their badge.
Yeah.
Not because you look like law enforcement.
Right.
You're uniformed. You have a badge. Okay. Oh, it must be some sort of town constable.
Sure.
Right. And so they're maybe you're not abusing it, but you kind of know what you're doing.
You're manipulating people.
Did you think I was an officer?
no, yeah.
Oh, no.
Just
no, I'm
offering you a
guide.
tour.
Yeah, just wanting to know if you want a tour.
But you know what also, though? Being able to solicit anywhere you want, I would think kind of cheapens the guide not persona, but image, because it's like a...
I don't like it.
like
It
a
gives it like
streetwalker,
a carnival atmosphere.
Well, carnival
Hey,
or-
step right up.
Right.
Get your guide.
prostitute, you're kind of just...
1 hour tour.
It's not attractive.
No.
Right.
I think, like you said, it doesn't raise it to a professional level.
Right. You're like a panhandler.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then what then do they do to stop that?
And what they have to do is they start doing solicitation locations where they designate the bounds of where you can solicit for tours. And then they which is restrictive, and then they eventually eliminate. But they grandfather. So people who have always been allowed to solicit for tours, say in Town Square. Okay. So the government does like this implementation schedule.
Yeah.
Anybody new coming along, no, you can't do that. You have to go to the guide station,
Right.
The West End guide station, the North End, the South End guide station. So guide stations were one of the places. You need to go there and wait for your tours. That's where people will pull in. If they want you, they know where to find you.
Okay.
Okay, kind of a thing is they're trying to get them out of these public spaces where you could be a nuisance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if I want a guide, I'll ask for one. Even to this day, some people don't want a guide. They don't want that kind of interpersonal interaction. They want to get on a bus,
which I think
or they
is
want to
silly.
listen to a recording.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, but I think you're gypping yourself of a great experience if you don't get a licensed battlefield guide. And I say that out of the kindness of my heart. You guys do not pay me, unfortunately.
And then when there's a visitor center built,
right,
the old Rosensteel building, there was the park headquarters was in town at one point. Then you got the Rosensteel Museum that is purchased. It becomes the visitor center, the one that's so widely known in the history of the park out at Ziegler's Grove that is gone today. That was the location for Procure Your Guide here.
So, but before that, though, and you said that the park headquarters was in town. Is it the library? Is that what you're
That's
talking
the
about?
one. Yeah, that was a government.
So, that wasn't a visitor center, was it?
That was offices. The
Just
headquarters,
offices.
right,
So it wasn't like you went there
to get your guide. No,
there was no central location to go as a visitor, which had to make this chaotic. Because then you could see why guides are standing anywhere, because you can get your John anywhere. You're right. You can get them on the corner by the Presbyterian Church. You can get them in an alleyway by Mama's or something. Like, you could pick one up anywhere.
I think you're making a great point, because there's no gateway to the park via a central stop here first at the visitors.
Right.
If that doesn't exist, Your guides are going to want to intercept people from all directions.
And it's very interesting because there was no visitor center from the get-go. That was something that came later. Okay. Now we have a visitor center, but because of the internet, it's almost going back to the original way it was, where people don't necessarily feel the need to go to a visitor center.
Right.
Which, by the way, if that's you, I think you are also gypping yourself, because we have a great museum at our visitor center, so you should go to the visitor center. But I understand the visitor center now, for anywhere we go, is this little thing that we carry in our pockets.
Right.
This is also how we find guides even. I mean, I don't know how many I've sent your way, but I know that I get requests when guides are on the show, especially guides that are on very often. I'll get, hey, can you hook me up with so-and-so? I want to do a tour with them or whatever. And I'm happy to do it. Yeah. Because that's the whole point of having you guys on, is to help you guys drum up business. That's me offering that, not them asking me to do it. And so, but it's kind of in a way, the internet is making it so that it's going back to the original way, but in a different sense, even though we still have a visitor center here.
Right.
Maybe I'm being a little too obtuse there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the word I was looking for, but
I would say what exists in today's space that reflects this age-old problem from the early 1900s that exists today is no guides are allowed to publicize and advertise their wares individually.
So how did that become a regulation? Was that one from the beginning, or was that something where someone, let's say, was retired and very wealthy and could buy a billboard or something like that, did it, and everybody's like, hey, that's not fair? Or was that something that was there from the get-go?
No, I think it morphed from this stepping off the curb, stopping vehicles individually out there.
Okay,
and there were some fights that broke out off the curb.
I bet.
In town, because two guides are racing for the same car. A car pulls over, and they're giving them the hockey check, knocking your fellow guide down to get to the door first. To get that tour, there's no leveling of the playfield, right? Mm-hmm. It's whoever's faster, whoever, jumps on that car the first, kind of a thing. And I think today's rule of no personal advertisement, you want this guide, click here, kind of a thing. And we sign, when we renew our license every year, we sign our memorandum of understanding, the rules, the ethics of guiding.
Right.
One of the ethics of guiding is you don't do self-promotion. No self-promotion. Okay. And so we don't do that. You procure your tours through various different venues. And there's a balancing of that. At the visitor center, there's a draw. There's available guides, and they book the tours to it on who's available on what dates. It's more availability based. It's not individual. Hey, if you want John, click here. If you want Bill, click here. Mm-hmm. It's no, and you're not out there advertising that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's the rules of the road. And I think that goes back to jumping off the curb and knocking people down. And that there were guys in a fist fight.
Yeah.
Because you're competing over tours.
But again, the internet kind of obliterates that, because you've got Facebook pages, you've got podcasts, and I guess someone can make the argument that, if I have a Facebook page, Matt's Gettysburg or whatever, and I'm a licensed guide, well, isn't that kind of self-promotion? Or
I guess that some of that stuff is fringe, right?
Yeah.
And that's for the, our supervisory ranger and the superintendent are ultimately to decide, do they want to say, no, you can't do that.
Right. That's going to be difficult to do, though. I think it's one of those things where to bring that in under control.
Right.
And podcasting, is that now you're getting into First Amendment stuff.
Yeah, well,
and I think that
kind of, but if you're going to accept the license and you sign the agreement, and the agreement says you're not going to do it, then it's under the agreement.
Yeah.
You're agreeing as a guide, I'm not going to do this. So we're not going to say, hey, if you want to tour with Jason Hileman, just dial 1-800.
But if I were a guide and I wanted to do a podcast,
you should be able to do a podcast, because in your podcast, you're not promoting your guiding.
Well, you
like
shouldn't.
I'm on with you,
Right.
and I'm not sitting here, hey, go to commercial. We're going to give, if you want Jason Hileman as your guide, you can find
now
him.
I can do that.
If they call you and say, how
Yeah.
do I get in touch with that guy? That's you.
But I can say to the people, if you would like to take a tour with Jason, contact me and I'll put you in touch. That's not a caveat to you coming on.
No.
No guides have ever said that to me. They're happy to just do it.
We're just doing it.
Yeah.
Because we love the subject.
And you want people to learn.
Right.
Yeah. But if I were to do a podcast as a guide and say, hire me,
Right.
that's different. That's possibly a violation. But if I were to do one and just say, I'm a guide and here's the story of the Battle of Gettysburg, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
That's what Jim and Eric do. There's nothing
Jim
wrong
and
with
Eric
them
do
doing
a
that.
podcast, and they're not aggrandizing their service as a guide.
No.
They're promoting their history and the story of the history.
Right.
If through that people say, hey, and I've fielded these calls at the guide office, hey, I'm really wanting to get a tour with Jim or Eric.
Right.
Okay. Can you hook me up with that? Yeah, I'll get you their number, and you can call them.
But that's them doing it because they listen to the show.
They're listening to the
Right.
show, and they kind of like that. They want maybe subject matter, and they want, take me out in the field and let's talk about that.
Yeah. But it's interesting how the internet, to me, is just, it really changes everything.
Yep.
And it is, I don't know, it's like one of those cat out of the bag things, I think. All right, so what else have we got here? We got regulations.
We did pricing.
Yeah, pricing.
Okay, so everybody's got to be priced the same. No setting your own prices. That's part of competition.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not out there saying, hey, I'll give you a tour at 10% discount. Book with me. You get a better deal. So universal pricing, solicitation then takes a number of decades to actually, as I said, they grandfathered. Fred, I love talking. Fred remembers the names of people who were still grandfathered. They were allowed to get tours down in the square.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Fred's been a guide for 30, 40, maybe 40 years, something like that.
God.
So Fred knew the guides.
So that means that they were in the 1915 class then.
Yeah, I think Fred knew some of the
old-timers,
earliest guides.
Yeah, wow.
And so that's who better to write this history. He was able to talk to these people, and he interacted with people who were grandfathered. They're still allowed to pick up tours down in the square.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go to a guide station, for example. He also remembers the people who were still able to post at the guide stations.
So the guide stations, let's talk about those.
The West End guide station, South End are the only two that still exist.
So now were those were created in response to, or not in response, but as an effort to get everybody to stop hanging out on street corners and on the square and everything, and saying, okay, you can operate out of one of these locations. Is that how let's talk about the guys. Because like you said, there's two. There's the West End, there's the South End, and they're bathrooms now.
And they were, and North End. So there was a North End.
Right. Where was that?
It's out near the school there somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where
Which
that
school?
location went.
College?
The high school.
The high school.
Mm-hmm. Going up the Harrisburg Road, I believe is the road it was on.
Well, maybe it was on the what's that farm right there? Just north of Blockers Knoll.
So yeah, I need somebody who
it's a Benner farm. It's one of the Benner farms. Was it there?
You're talking about the Christian Benner farm?
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Josiah Benner.
Josiah Benner. I don't know where that North End guide station is, but it got torn down.
Yeah, it's not there anymore.
My understanding of the guide stations, and I would need somebody more knowledgeable to clarify this, was my understanding is those were kind of the gateways to the park.
Yeah.
So you going to enter the park from the west, from the north, from the south. I don't know if there ever was one from the east, but that was, since there's no visitor center.
Right.
Where you're going to get your introductory info.
Right.
Okay, so is there a park map? Stop here.
Yeah.
Okay. And guides could be posted there. And if you wanted a guided tour, here they are. Go. So those were think where those are. On the southern border and the western border today, there was one on the northern border, and I'm not sure about the eastern because, well, as you know, the York Pike going out there, that's never really been preserved.
No.
That's your corridor of your commercialization right there. So I'm not sure if there was ever one.
And I am thinking about the Josiah Benner farm. That's what 6 Questions just confirmed.
Josiah
and if 6 Questions says it, I know it's true.
Me too.
He never makes a mistake.
I trust him.
But okay, so those were put up as like the mini visitor centers, depending on where you're coming from.
Yeah, gateway to the park kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a logical place to put your guides. Put your guides there. It seems pretty organized at that point. And if you're stopping there, there's got to be some interest that you stop, that you want info.
Probably a bathroom.
And a bathroom.
Yeah. So when did they stop using those as guide stations? Roughly, if you don't know it off the top of your head.
Do not know when the guide stations were.
Okay. I mean, this isn't a test.
As a posted guide location.
Okay. Well, maybe 6 Question knows that one, and he can answer for us. But okay, so moving on though, the exams. Let's move. Are you ready to move on to the next topic, or you got more on regulations?
Sure.
Okay, exams. So now you've got the 1915 exams, the first one. For a while, it was, I think, unofficial in my lifetime that they would give them every 2 years, but that wasn't any like law that said it had to be done. It just seemed to be that was the way it was working out for a number of years that I can recall.
Yeah, my understanding of it is while it's taken on patterns at different times during the years, it's always been based on a supply and demand.
Okay.
So when do you need more guides or not? If you don't need as many, let attrition take its effect.
When was the second exam given?
So we started in 1915. Of course, we're going to change the park ownership.
In the 33?
So the War Department gives up. Yep, what'd you say?
33?
1933. Very good. So the National Park Service takes over ownership in 1933. And
that goes to the
one of the things the National Park Service did was they instituted a self-guided tour signage.
Right.
You talk about a threat to the guides.
Yeah. So how did that go over?
Not good.
And they did that in 33?
1937.
37.
Uh-huh.
So that's been there since the 30s.
1937 is when they published a self-guided tour route. Imagine coming to the park before that. There is nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I understand.
You really need a guide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can understand the thinking, but I also know.
I think they're going to go a period of years, Matt, without an exam. So they did 1915, and then they re-examined those second and third class guides in 16.
So how many were in that first batch of guides?
91.
91. Okay, so that sounds like an adequate force.
So yeah, because there were 91 licensed through that process, and as of 1960, 15 of them were still working.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
Wow.
1915, 1960, there was 15 of them still working.
Huh.
Yeah. And don't forget, now the park's going to go through an era where you don't need any guides when you go through the Great Depression.
Oh, really?
You got World War I.
Yeah.
Then you're going to go through the Great Depression.
Okay.
Then you're going to go through World War II. So I'm going to say the reason why I'm not reading a lot in Fred's history about when there's successive guiding exams is I think they're going to go quite a number of years where that's not an issue.
So I'm assuming World War I, they're not doing it because they need men for the front.
To the front.
Right.
And
then Depression.
Great Depression.
Nobody has the money.
Right. Nobody's traveling.
Right. So there's no point in having guides.
Right.
It's not that is it that they said, well, we're in a depression, no more guides, or was it just that's just the way it worked out?
You don't need more guides.
You don't need
have
more.
Enough guides.
Okay, gotcha. And that must have been tough because that's certainly a luxury.
Once you had the 91 licensed.
Yeah.
Do you need, at what point, like visitation is going to go down during world wars,
Sure.
You're conserving, like World War II, you think about it, you're conserving tires, gasoline, people weren't traveling.
No.
Great Depression, people weren't traveling.
How did the examination process evolve over the years? Maybe that's what we should get into with the exams.
Right.
Not when did they give them, but how did it evolve?
Yeah.
You mentioned in 15 that it was read to you.
Right.
And then you had it, but as they go on, obviously that can't possibly have lasted very long that way.
No, it's going to be written, then you fill in the blanks, right? So you fill in the answers. And there is a guide exam in 1952, so think about that. That's post-World War II.
Yeah.
So that's in Fred's history. The guide exam then was to increase the guide force from under 55. So it decreased from the 91, licensed in the 1915 guide exam process, down to under 55. And so they needed to bolster the number.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to ask Fred, did they go from 1915 to 1952 with the 91, and they let it erode down under 55 people to be guides? Well, in one way I could imagine that.
The big joke today is, of course, the youngest person on the guide force is 57 years old. Of course, that's not true, but it's mostly older people. Was that the case back then? I mean, society has changed now where, like, you have to have, like, a real job, and this is something you do later as things get easier. The kids are out of the house, and you've got more time. But you still have, like, in your case, you still have a career.
Right.
But you do this on the side. A lot of other guides are that way.
Right.
Was that the way it was in the early days, or was it more like this is what you did?
I get the sense this is what you did.
This is what you did.
And so when the government stepped in there, the War Department, Gettysburg National Military Park, stepped in there, and they licensed those 91. These people were doing this as their job.
Mm-hmm.
They're jumping on these people's career. I get a sense that it was more of a job, a career, of something that. And the reason I say that is, at least most of them must have been doing that because they're competing for tours.
Right.
If you think about the behavior of solicitation and what's leading to them cracking down on how you get tours,
it's not supplemental income.
You're driving for the more trips you get, the more money you make.
Yeah, right? That makes sense.
So there's some high enough desire with enough of that force that you have to, like, say, okay, ease up on the jumping on cars in the square, right?
Yeah. I mean, people back then couldn't have been that much crazier than we are today. Like, it sounds more like they're desperate. These are like desperate acts.
They're
right?
wanting to stop cars jumping. Like, there's talk in the history of they're worried for these people's safety.
Right.
Do not be leaving the curb more than 2 feet. Like, there's moving traffic out there, and not everybody passing through this town is looking for a tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is in the it is in between Chambersburg and Lancaster.
Right. There are other places to
people
go.
Traveling through. Yeah.
This is sometimes a through town for people.
Hey, here's a little fact.
Go ahead.
In the history of the guiding, Dr. Frederick Tilburg and Dr. Harry Fons and Colonel Jacob Sheeds created the Gettysburg Civil War Roundtable. For why? Continuing learning or a broader spectrum of knowledge exclusively for guides. The Gettysburg Civil War Roundtable was originally exclusively for the guides.
Exclusively?
For the guides as a continuing education forum.
Huh.
And then it was, very shortly thereafter opened up to anybody. So that's an interesting piece of the history of the Gettysburg Civil War Roundtable.
It is.
I think that's pretty cool.
And you know what? My friend is Jacob Sheets' grandson, Matt. And he gave me some of his things. Not gave me, but has indefinitely loaned to me, let's say. One of them is this little pocket notebook that he used to carry on tours with, fast facts about the Army of Northern Virginia. And there was a Union one. Matt doesn't know where it is. So, he used to have one for each, and I guess in each pocket or whatever. And it's very interesting to go through. I went through, it's been used and some of the papers are loose. So I went through it page by page and like copied it by hand in my own little notebook. And I didn't correct any of the information that's now, like some numbers he has are different today, and positions of the Whitworths are different and things from when he wrote it. And so, things like that. or a number of Whitworths that are on display on the field. There used to be 4 apparently, and now there's only 2, and just things like that. But it's really neat to see because some of his other paperwork was like it was his suggested tour route, and it starts at the angle.
Right.
Yeah, because that's the way it was back then.
Yeah.
And it's the reverse of the way it is today, the traffic patterns.
Yeah. And, I being an engineer, want to be very structured. So I want to tell the story in chronological order. I just want to build it. Why would you
start at the end?
Just, and I get it that the visitor center has historically been down on this
but it
other
doesn't make
end.
sense. Why do you start at the end?
Drive out there and come back.
I do like movies though that start at the end and then they work it back to.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's cool, but that's a very hard way to tell a story, and you have to be a super talented storyteller to be able to do that.
Right, to reflect on that.
And I don't even know how you would do it. I'm not that talented of a storyteller. I don't know how you would do that.
Yeah.
In a physical space. You start at the scene of the last action of the battle, so to speak, and then say, okay, everybody, now just hold on to that, and now we're going to go a couple miles to the beginning, and I'll work you back up to this. I mean, I guess it could be done, but that's pretty interesting. But yeah, okay.
So you want to talk about the evolution of the examination process too.
Yeah.
When it starts out, it's very, very much just knowledge based.
Okay.
There is no presentation based anywhere in it. So those licensed battlefield guide exams are just that. They're exams.
And that's interesting though, because I wonder if that's a reflection of the populace. Not the government per se, but it's like the way things are now, where it seems to be not that your knowledge doesn't matter, but that's just your foot in the door. And then it's more ability to connect with the public.
Right.
I wonder if that is the government responding to the TikTok-ness of the world today.
Right.
And I need to be entertained when I learn.
Yeah.
And so I need someone who's got a good personality who could connect with me, because if you sit there and you rattle off, these facts that only you find interesting, and you're trying to just impress me, well, I'm not impressed. I grew up with this stupid thing. When I got antsy at home, my parents put this in my hand, and I was gone for 4 hours, and it was fascinating. And you need to fascinate me, because I find real life and real people to be very boring. Right. And so, I wonder if it evolves because the people evolve, the population evolves, or in this case, devolves.
Yeah, and I think one of the perspectives is the initial problem was lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
So the transferring of incorrect information.
So
so they attack that first.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, then the next thing that gets inserted is the oral. So an oral final. So you got your knowledge, and then they institute the oral final. So at that point, then it goes to use the words today, tiers. So there'd be a second tier introduced where, okay, take me on a tour. So now they're at least thinking about, from that age-old article of William D. Holdsworth, that he's the best posted man, so he knows it, and he's also very affable. Now they're getting to the affable part. So at least now the park was looking at, okay, how well do you tell it? So you think about it, they went a number of years in exams, and it's knowledge. As long as you know the knowledge, you're not going to betray the story, the accuracy of the story. That was our number one, don't get it wrong. Okay, you're getting it right. But are you relating it to people so they get it? They understand the grander story behind it? And so they introduced the oral. So now they're listening to you. And how do you frame it? Are you getting done in 2 hours? Is a 2-hour tour going 3?
Yeah.
Are you being respectful of the time? Can you frame the story in the context of the time allowed? Because the first thing I asked people was, okay, how long would you like for your tour? Because you're going to get the level of detail that fits in that box.
Right.
If you ask me for, a 2-hour, well, that level of detail is different than the 3 or the 4. Okay. There's a different level that we can go to in that.
Right.
Years ago, there was a tour, and I think it might have been during the Great Depression. They offered a twister. This is from Fred's history. They called it the twister. It was a 1 hour. Basically, it's a drive-through.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And they called it a twister because it's a tornado. It's a twister.
Yeah,
you know, like it just blows through.
Yeah.
Is you're doing a 1 hour, and I think that was introduced because of the money. Trying to be, hey, I can give you a quick tour of it for just the 1 hour, and I can afford that.
Yeah.
But I can't afford to. So I think they were being conscientious about the pricing, and so they offered a twister, but we don't offer a 1 hour.
No
twister.
twisters anymore.
I've done one. Like some people came in and visited me, and I said, well, would you like to see it? Well, we don't have time. I'll take you. We'll just drive through.
Yeah.
And so I just drove them through. It took like 45 minutes to an hour. I just, real high level, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This is day one. It happens in 3 days. They run into each other out here. This is day one. Then they retreat through the town. We're going to drive them down there. I'll show you those monuments, right? You can drive through in 45 minutes.
Yeah, you
and
can.
as long as you're not like, don't get caught up in it. You can just give them a general overview. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty big. And what do they leave with? Oh, that's big. I can't believe how much park there was.
That was something
and a lot of monuments.
I always heard people saying when they would come back from a bike tour, which was, I remember this one woman, she made me laugh because she was like, she goes, when we booked this, I was like, how do you take a 3 hour bike tour of a battlefield? Like, what is there to see in 3 hours? She goes, because when I picture a battlefield, I think of a football field. Yeah.
It happened right there.
And this, like she literally said a football field. And
right.
I was like, well, that's, I guess, the modern battlefield in America. It's like we do battle out of.
I've had people on tour say, I thought it was in one spot.
Yeah.
Like you were going to take us to the battlefield and here is where it happened.
Right.
Like standing in one spot, you could see
and
it.
You could do the whole thing.
Yeah. I didn't know it covered such a vast
right.
area and it was as complex as it was.
Yeah.
I've had people on tour. They come here and still to this day thought that.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
absolutely.
no, it's. I mean, if you don't have any frame of reference, I mean, what are you going to think? Your frame of reference, field, football field, soccer field, something like that. I mean, soccer's not a real sport, but still, you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, and people even from the area that drive through, and they think it's only what's out on Route 30.
Yeah, I know.
Because that's the only part they ever see. And
or
they
the
think
Emmitsburg Road.
That's the Gettysburg. Or the Emmitsburg, because that's the only part they ever see is that's the Battle of Gettysburg.
And that always gets me, too, is the locals who don't really know. And I have a hard time understanding people who don't want to be aware of the world that they're in. Like we just bought a house. And the first thing I did is I went on my phone, I pulled up the map, and I'm like, which way is north, which way is, I want to, and what's where and everything like that. Yeah. I want to know where I am. I want to know what's around me. I don't just exist and float through the world. But plenty of people, I think, are happy to do that.
I moved here 12 years ago, and I got to tell you, in general, because I work with people who lived here and have lived here all their life, locals take it for granted.
Oh, yeah.
They ignore it.
Some of them even resent it.
Some can even resent it because of the pain it presents them with traffic. Now I'm trying to get to work, and you tourists are in the way.
Exactly,
you're irritating, right?
Yeah.
You don't know where you're going. You're looking around. You know, get out of the way. So So then they introduce the oral part of it.
Yeah,
is let's listen to you. Then at some point, they introduce the school. So what you said was, and they don't like to say, don't you say charm school.
Oh, they don't like that.
Oh, they don't like it.
Who's they?
Well, I don't think the park likes to say that that's charm school. But
what
was the purpose?
But that's the slang.
That's the slang of it.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of it? Teach the guide. You've got past knowledge. Teach the guide the expectations. Now we're going to frame some expectations.
Right.
Of what we expect from you from a guided tour, and in that we'll frame that and some expectations for behavior. No foul language, no aggrandizement, no, just tell the story. No sides. We don't say we and they.
Right. Without praise or censure.
No praise and no censure. So just tell it all, warts and all. You will go to Colpsville. Certain things, certain parameters, right? In that today, they even talk about driving the vehicle. Interestingly enough, and I assume that these rules still exist, we were told in our school there are 3 things that will immediately end your oral exam. Immediate fail. Like, we're not going to give you the opportunity to finish. Take both hands off the wheel.
Ooh. 10 and 2?
Take both hands off the steering wheel.
And it's finished.
And we're stopping.
Okay, both hands.
You can
have
one hand and point.
Okay, good.
Change hands. But don't go like this.
Yeah, well, why would you do that?
Hey, walk a mile and somebody else, it happens. It can happen easy.
Really?
Yeah. Don't take both hands off the steering.
Why are you doing jazz hands?
Yeah, I mean, some people talk with their hands, right? And
I guess.
So some people naturally might just go like that.
Yeah.
But the vehicle's moving.
So that's interesting because when I'm in a car,
you're not in danger. You're going 20 miles an hour. It's straight, and they might think to take both hands off.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. When
It's
I'm in
their
a car,
car.
my first duty is driver.
Well, you got the right mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was taught well.
Yeah, right.
Not
Just
everybody-
don't take both hands off the steering. That's an immediate stop. We're going back to the visitor center. You took both hands off the steering wheel. Okay, better luck next time.
Okay.
You get a second try. All right. The other thing is miss a traffic directional sign. So blow the stop sign, blow the traffic signal.
Oh.
Disobey a directional device, right? The other one is speeding. So think about it. When they present it, I'm like, oh, yeah, that could happen. So you're on a 2-hour time frame. You got to get the store done. So you're going 35 miles an hour.
Yeah, right.
You're not going to make up. Don't speed.
No.
So
you can't make it up when you get out of the park because, like, if you're, let's say, on Reynolds and you don't have time to go all the way up to the Peace Light and everything, and you have to go on a Chambersburg to get
25 miles an hour.
Still 25 miles an hour.
That's right.
So you can't speed that little bit to the seminary.
I think we were given parameters. You can go like 5 miles over, maybe. So there was a parameter, like if you
like whatever the
exceeded,
cops would let you get away with.
like we're only going to give you so much bandwidth. Like don't speed.
Well, I'm glad that my cruise control in my car allows you to set at 25. It used to not.
It used to not.
Yeah.
I think you had to be over 30 or 35 miles
26.
an hour.
You had to be 26 miles.
Okay.
Well, from one of the ones that I had before. So either way, now I can do it at.
You could.
Today I had it set at 18 because I had to go through a school zone. It was 15 miles an hour. And I was like, this is the worst.
So
anyway,
it's interesting because in the early days when there was hackmen and drivers of the livery, the earliest licensing licensed two things. You could be licensed as a driver or be licensed as a guide. Guides didn't drive, drivers didn't guide. And they were regulated separately. All right. The knowledge exam was for the guides. Then when they slowly moved away from you don't need a driver, there's less and less need for drivers. Drivers went away. Guides began driving. And it's interesting, in today's expectations of the park, the 3 things that fail you immediately during an attempted oral is driving related.
Yeah.
Because you're in their vehicle.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a high respect for their safety and the safety of their property. Right? So now you've combined the driving and the guiding. And the 3 things that put you in immediate fail are mishandle the driving.
So really, like the oral is, from what I'm hearing you say, is less about, not that it's not about, but it's less about what you know and more about everything else that goes into giving a tour.
The experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the exam, the oral that I took and that people take is for the first time visitor. It's the complete novice. So you're presenting to people who don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So relate 2 hours. You got them for 2 hours. The story of the Battle of Gettysburg. All 3 days, go to Culp's Hill. Don't speed. Don't blow traffic signals. Don't take your hands off the wheel.
Yeah.
And we're going to grade you on, what that experience is like. So it's all about presentation, relatability, how well you relate to the visitor, the safety, and the overall experience. I've become a better driver since I was licensed.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
I have. I've become. And
you'd have to.
And when I put the uniform on and I get in a vehicle here, I am super driver.
Yeah.
I signal so diligently. I check my mirrors. I pull out. I am the best driver on this park.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the expectation of how we were examined is. And you think about it. At no point does that visitor want to feel at all uncomfortable that you're driving their vehicle.
Sure.
They want to know that they're in good hands.
Yeah, because they don't know who you are.
Pro. You're a pro.
Do you signal coming out of your driveway?
I do not.
I do.
Do you?
I do. Because the way my driveway is, I'm able to come out front-wise, like I don't back out of it. So I signal.
You say, well,
I don't need to.
It's just a pattern.
It's just, it's a habit
when
that I get
into. When do you start
into.
deciding it's not necessary, right? Yeah, so, I mean, and I've seen people be comfortable.
Yeah.
There's no chances being taken while we're driving this vehicle. You're in good hands. It's super safe and highly professional the whole time. They sense it the way you're operating the vehicle, right? You're under control. You're not rushed.
So basically, treat it like you're taking a driving test.
Right.
Just everything that you had to do in your driving test.
Right. We were given parameters. You stop at the stop sign. That's your first stop.
Yeah.
Come to a complete stop at the stop sign. Then you will creep forward to be able to look left and right.
Yeah.
Okay. But your first stop is the legal stop at the bumper, at the at the stop sign. So the driving part of it. And then as that has evolved, you go knowledge exam, teach you through the school what the expectations are. It includes the driving, and now the oral, the final, right? And then that evolved further with, okay, very knowledgeable people, but still not getting the best relatable tour.
Right.
Like we need people with a better interpersonal skills of presentation. That's when they instituted, for the first time, the 2015 exam, the interview process was the 4-tier. Knowledge exam, then an interview. If you don't interview well, come back next time. We're not going to start the whole process of teaching you what the expectations are for an exam. We don't have a good feel from the interview that you're answering questions well, that your presentation, eye contact and how you deal. That's your first judgment of how well are you going to relate. Because we're going to ask you like 5 simple, same questions. Give us the answer. We're watching how you handle it.
Yeah. It almost sounds to me like it's harder now in a different way than it was, say, in the 1915 when they got those ridiculous questions. Like, it's harder in the sense that, it's more maybe challenging. I don't know if harder is the word, but it's more challenging because a lot of history people are not personality people.
It accentuates soft skills.
Yeah.
Now.
Right.
Whereas before it was, at its earliest days, it's driven on knowledge only.
Right.
Think about it. Only knowledge.
And
it was only an exam.
And I think that there's a lot of people who are still in that mindset, and no matter how many times they may see one of the shows that we've been doing this year about guiding, and when the guides and even when Angie was on and they're not saying no, knowledge doesn't matter. That's not what they're saying, but they're saying, yeah, but this other stuff matters too.
Yeah.
And you got to have both. You can't have one without the other.
That's correct.
It's like, so that sounds like it's going to be more difficult for a lot of people because they've spent so much time with their nose in a book and not developing people skills. And that really, I think at the end of the day, if you can get your, and I know it sounds like I've already passed it, and I don't think I'm gonna, but it sounds to me that the is passing the written. Then after that point, you just have to focus on really like connecting with somebody,
correct,
being a human being.
Yeah,
and it's like a lot of nerds. In our, I meet a lot of people like, and they're not doing that.
And just from being around the Civil War community.
Yes.
And being on walks, and I'm just a part of the community. I'm out there taking battlefield walks with everybody else and signing up for these tours because I just love this. Right. Is I see people who are love the subject matter. They're exuberant. But the fact is, and I know people who are super knowledgeable, they have no interest in being a guide.
Wow.
I have no interest in being a reenactor.
Right, me neither.
I don't. I just don't. That's not my thing.
Too lazy.
Part of the history is why do you want to be a guide? And there is a document. It's out there. And it's put out there with, I think it's with, we used it at the Guide Academy, but I don't know if it's with the NPS packet or not. But there are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 questions that you need to answer to test. Are you doing this for the right reason? Okay. is it for you? You want to feel good about, or is it for them? Are you doing it for the veteran? Are you doing it for the story to give it its due, right? And to tell their story. Is that what's important to you? So, do you love to teach?
Yes.
Are you a storyteller?
Sometimes.
Are you an extemporaneous speaker? I can't even say it.
Yes.
Are you a simplifier?
Oh, I'm simple.
Are you simplify? Well, you're going to be a simplifier. Do you love people?
I do.
Okay. Do you like being around people and all kinds of people?
Yeah.
You enjoy different types of personalities.
Because
I found that I do more today than I did before.
Well, and you get great stories, and you never know who you're going to meet.
Oh yeah. I love just meeting people from all over the place. Are you comfortable speaking to groups?
Yeah.
Are you flexible? Are you?
I mean, I can't do the splits I used to, but yeah.
Not that flexible.
Oh.
You're not.
I can improvise, is what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. So no, this is my tour, and this is where we're going, and it doesn't change.
Yeah.
No, if somebody asks a question, I'll take you over there.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, because when you have to do your oral, don't you have to like prepare a tour ahead of time based around some kind of theme? Or is that what you had to do in the past?
When I was examined, yes. So we were told.
See, that would scare the hell out of me.
In our weekend class, develop your own theme. We know you know the battle.
Yeah.
You all know the battle. You're going to give a 2-hour tour, but within the 2-hour tour, it needs to have an underlying theme from the beginning, and it kind of conclude. And people see the linkage. So if you want to know mine, good ground.
High ground.
It's a good ground. So the key of, you think about how I weave that in: roads, hills, ridges, the good ground. Now get this. At the end, then I say, now you see how the good military ground becomes preserved and eventually hallowed.
Oh.
Now it's hallowed ground.
Okay.
It's good ground.
Good
right?
ground. I get it.
So, and they get the history of the battle, the history of the park, and the cemetery.
That's pretty good.
Hallowed ground.
See, now.
So that was my theme.
But here's the problem that I have, and this is where I think I'll get tripped up. I'm a good improviser. I'm not a good planner. When I have to plan, I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not in the moment. Right. I don't know what these people are like. I don't know what their personality. I play off of people.
Right.
So to be able to do that just for a test, that's going to take a lot of work for me.
So the only part that was a wild card.
I'm not going to take it.
Well, I'm out.
I'm done.
I'm done. I'm quitting.
See, but I don't assume that I'm going to get that far, so I'm not worried.
I was going to say, don't do that. Don't do that.
I would be surprised if I'll get a passing grade, according to what we used to do in school,
right,
on the written. Will it be something that would actually get me beyond? I don't think so.
Right.
But who knows? But I don't know, because I don't know. I don't know.
You have to do it. You have to experience it. You have to, find that out. You may surprise yourself. So we did the theme of the 2-hour tour, and that's up to you. But you still had the parameters. You got the time. You got to go to Culp's Hill. And so
you have to go to Culp's Hill.
You do have to go to Culp's
Hill. That's interesting, because most guides don't.
We did. Now, here's the thing, and people will say this, that it's probably the last 2-hour tour you're ever going to do. Because they don't go that way. Right. People ask you questions all the time. People say, "Can we stop at the bathroom?"
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still.
When we had the bike tours, we had the people, they had to stop at CVS.
So you know what happens to Culp's Hill? That's the time changer.
Yeah.
That's how you regulate your time. Is if they're asking a ton of questions and they want to be talking, it's their tour.
Sure.
I'm not going to say, "Hey, we don't have time for that right now. We have to move." Okay, you don't do that. That's their time. It's their tour. I learned early on, don't make promises about Culp's Hill and McPherson's Woods. Okay, because what you find out is you're already 2 hours in.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you're coming off Little Round Top, you don't have to make it worse driving to Culp's Hill.
No.
You need to summarize that from Little Round Top and go up to the angle.
Yeah.
Right? Because they have the rest of their day too.
Right.
So don't tell them that, and they don't know you cut that out to stay within the parameters of the time of the tour.
They don't know what they don't know.
That's correct. They don't know that.
But what do you do when you get someone who does know?
But if I promised them, now they have. What I thought you said we were going to Culp's Hill. You have to take me to Culp's Hill. You said you were taking me to Culp's Hill.
So keep your mouth shut.
Now, if somebody requests something.
Yes.
And I don't know that I've ever had anybody say, "Now, are you going to take us to Culp's Hill?" But if they did, I would.
Yeah.
I've had people say, "Are we going to go to Little Round Top?" And now I can say, "Yes." But for a year and a half, I had to say, "Well, near it, you'll see it, but you're not going to it."
Yeah.
But usually the things that people have requested specifically, we're going to anyway. Like you're going to the Angle. Are we going to go to where the high water market? Yes.
Yeah.
Are we going to go to this place called Little Round Top? Yes. Yeah.
Thursday, you're coming on AG Today to give your top 5 pieces of advice for people taking the guide exam. So we're going to get further into these things on that day.
The tips, yeah.
The final thing I want to talk about, we touched on it before, but let's finish with it. Women guides.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, women in guiding. 1968 was the first one. What was her name?
Barbara Shoot.
Barbara Shoot. And we've had 50, or at the time of the 50th anniversary of Women in Guiding, we had 50 guides who were females.
Yeah.
There weren't 50 at that time at the 50th, but over the 50 years.
There has been 50.
There has been 50.
As of 2018, I'm trying to think. We haven't had an exam since 17, right?
Correct.
So they're still probably on that number.
So why then do you think, okay, so there was a time where it was no girls allowed.
Right.
Okay. Now there's still a minority of the guide force.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is? Do you hear do you hear them opining as to why that might be?
Probably interest.
Is it so? It's
There's
not
probably less interest within the female group.
Yeah.
Of wanting to be a guide.
Right.
In general, when I go to any kind of event, historical event, there's less females that are interested in history in general.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, you see it's
so then take a subset of that and
yeah.
how many people want to convey the message of the tour.
I hear some say, though, well, it's a boys' club and, I don't like being the way they talk to me or whatever. But I always feel like most of the time when anybody of any ilk says, well, I don't like this because of the way someone talks or something like that. It tends to, in my mind, it's more like, well, that's the way you're taking it. Like you're putting your feelings about yourself on them and saying that they're treating you a certain way. But, like no one else would objectively hear that and say it. And I think but I think that's a minority of people. I do agree with you that I just find that, the interest isn't there as much, and it's not that women aren't interested in history. It's just that in this realm of history, I find it's always more men than women, in the audience or whatever it may be. And I just, I don't.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't a fair number. I mean, and I tell you what, the guides that we have that are females that I don't even think about it. Like, if there's not a conscientious thought in my head that you're a female guide, I just see a guide, right? I see a guide. I listen to a guide.
Right.
We have some of the, I go on their walks.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the guides.
No, I know.
The female guides we have.
I always get into this with Jessie Weedleton. I was like, the audience loves when you come on. You got to come back on. And she's like, I don't want to do it alone. I'm like, why don't you want to do it alone? She's like, I don't know. I get nervous. She's always got some kind of, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you're great. People love you. Like, but she doesn't want. But I get her. I pair her up with someone sometimes or whatever. But I am going to get her to come on by herself, by hook or crook, before I die. But like
maybe artillery. She likes artillery. Get her to talk about some artillery.
No, she's done them alone. She doesn't like doing them alone. And the audience loves her when she comes on. I don't know.
Right.
I'll keep working on her.
Right.
Okay. But we are seeing, there's how many women are on the force now? The force is what, like 130-ish?
I thought it was in the low 140s. Maybe it's 137 now.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
140. Let's just say 140.
It was up around 150 when I come on, and now it's attrited down to below 140. I think you're right.
But we had some retarees and some deaths in the last, since like, say, COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
COVID actually forced some people to just
stop,
quit.
So 140. So how many of those are female? Would you say? You don't have to give me an exact number, but 5%, 10%, 2%, 30%, 90%.
There's got to be pushing 20 female guides.
Okay.
What would that be?
I can't.
12%? 13?
I can't do that math in my head. I went to Catholic school.
10% would be 14.
Okay. That's true. That I can do.
See, that's how I always simplify
Yeah,
it.
you
Just
start
do
there.
the easy number.
Okay.
Of 140, 10% is 14.
So then
We're talking pushing 20. We got to be 12, 13%.
something up like there. Okay, great. So so that's good. That's a pretty decent sized number, and I think you're going to see that grow. I know
I do too.
of about maybe 4 females who are taking the guide exam this year.
Yeah, I can think of a number of them that I've spoken to that I know are taking the exam.
And by the way, if you pay attention to this show, the people in surrounding me on this show are majority female.
Female, correct.
And it's not because I'm sexy.
No. No.
I mean, yeah, exactly. It's because they're interested in this stuff too, and I'm actually kind of flattered that they feel comfortable to come on here and that I provide a space for them to explore everything.
And there are female guides. They set an example. They are a good example, and then others are willing to do it.
Yeah, right.
And the more and then it grows.
Yeah.
It just grows from there.
I
So
agree.
we've got a great group. They do great scholarship. They do great work out on the field. And the more you do that, then that's going to encourage others to want to do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason, thank you very much for coming and doing
it's
this.
my pleasure. Hope that in some small way I gave Fred's work, justice. Like I said, Fred.
I should get Fred on.
Yeah, you should. And I talked to Fred during the Guide Academy. I said, Fred, they're looking for a history of guiding. I'm using your stuff, buddy.
Yeah, he should come on sometime.
Yeah. Fred would be great. And Fred knows so much more detail about some of this early guiding. It is amazing. And the pictures, if you had the ability to show, put up some pictures that he would have, it's amazing stuff.
If you can,
We've got pictures of William D. Holdsworth, taking the president around.
Yeah.
Rutherford B. Hayes, it's in the carriage right behind him.
That's
there
cool.
He's got all these pictures in. Look right there. There's Holdsworth. Right there's Holdsworth. You can see Holdsworth in all these pictures. There's your guide. And he's not in a guide uniform. He's just doing.
If you can get me digital versions of these pictures, I can put them in when I edit this show.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, we can throw that up there.
If you can do it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to put this up by Monday.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to take a tour with Jason, you can contact me, and I will put you in touch with him. And I'd be happy to do that. Jason is a great guide. In fact, 6 Questions Lens says that. Jason is a great guide. I'm loving this episode. Thank you, 6 Questions. I appreciate that. Thank you to everybody who called in from wherever you're from. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you're watching this on the YouTube free feed right now, that's because we're getting into the holiday season. I'm feeling a little bit generous, but also because I want you to know that you would watch this ahead of Usually, I don't do a show on a Tuesday and put it out on Monday. I put it out months later, but because of the guide exam coming up, I'm putting any guide related shows cool. up to the front. So this will come out on Monday, but normally only our patrons get to see this at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. So go ahead and become a patron. By the way, 14 out of 72 orthodontists say that being a patron of Addressing Gettysburg and listening to the episodes, the 300 plus episodes over there, will help you with the guide exam. You won't pass it, but it'll help you.
One other thing is, I hope the show didn't encourage somebody to want to become a guide, because you're going to have to wait now because registration's closed.
Registration's closed, yeah. I hope
if you're not involved in the current exam process, you're not going to be.
Yeah, and I also hope we didn't discourage anybody who might be a little shy by overemphasizing the personality part of everything.
Right.
Because that would suck too, because you just paid $250.
Don't worry about it yet.
See if we can get past the written.
Learn it.
And by the way,
just do the written.
If you are taking the guide exam, that night you should sign up for our Christmas party. We have limited space, but and it's actually filling pretty quickly. So you want to go to our Facebook page. I posted the link where you can go and sign up. It's free. It's at the Barn Resort. We also have an invitation list, which you are on. I just haven't sent out the invitations yet. So
December 7th.
December 7th, 6 o'clock. We are all going to need a drink, some laughter, and some frivolity with some fellow Gettys nerds. And if you're a listener to the show and you want to rub elbows with some of your favorite guests who've been on the show this year, then you must come and join us at the Christmas party, 6 o'clock at the Barn Resort, December 7th of 2024.
Awesome.
That's it for us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate your support, and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, we're done.
That's a great idea.
What?
People are going to want to blow off steam.
Damn right.
Yeah, man.
Damn right.
I came out of that. I still remember. I came out of there. Give me a drink.
I'm going in drunk. What do you think of that?
Oh, that's a good idea.
I'm going to take it drunk.
You know, the other thing is I thought you were going to say, and if you're taking the guide exam, don't look at a thing the day before.